Hello there, everyone. Can you hear me? I believe we are live. Should be live. There we go. Okay, I think I got everything ready, started, set to go. Alright, let's see how we are in the comments over here. Hey, everybody. Hello, Grambo. Hello, Blaze. Hello, Platts. Mohammed. Akshar, my good friend. How you doing? I'm doing great. Squidward on a chair. Alright, hype. Yeah. I'm messing around with a couple new settings today, so if we have a chance at an intermission, in case I need to take a break or something like that, you'll probably see this here. So, we got that to test out. And also, I'm playing around with foam in the background and also some new lighting because the lighting was getting a little dark. So making sure that the lighting is now a little bit brighter. Okay, it doesn't look too dark in here. Hello, everybody. Alrighty. Okay, so we got a lot of big news today, or at least this week, in terms of Biden's new push for rail. Again, I've said it before many times on multiple streams. It's not at all that I'm against whatever's going on. Absolutely not. The thing is that we've heard a lot of these promises before, and I don't have the memory of a gnat to know that we've been promised so much from so many different administrations that hopefully this time, if something's going to happen, yes, by all means, let's let it happen. But if, we need to keep on it. That's the whole thing. But apart from that, we also have physical progress on an actual rail line that actually has been running before, prior to this, prior to the virus event. But let's see. But this is pretty good. So we are halfway there. That's why we saw Bon Jovi on. So there we are. Construction on Brightline's Orlando extension now officially 50% complete as of April 7th, 2021. This is just, more and more just big news, just great news that just keeps moving America forward. That's what we need. Brightline has used the box jacking process where precast concrete blocks are pushed under a highway to create a grade crossing separation on its route to the Orlando airport. Video showing more of the work is available here, and that's from Brightline. We saw that the last stream. Unless you guys want to see it again, let me know in the comments. Yeah, shout out to Roaming Rail Fan who keeps doing it. He's getting a shout on every single stream. Yes, he just keeps on providing the footage. Yeah, the new Cocoa Tunnel. It's looking fantastic. Box jacking at Cocoa, Florida. All right, so you guys can see here. Well, this is from it's on trains.com, but we'll go ahead and give it a shot. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. This is an archive. For some reason, I was trying to log into my trains.com account or whatnot because I have a subscription from them to receive the magazines. But for some reason, it's not letting me in. It's old boomer tech. It's not letting me in. Oh well. But you can see that it has been getting built there and whatnot. So we're waiting for that to happen. It's just, again, they say by the end of 2023 we should be getting to Orlando. At the rate that they're going right now, that shouldn't be a problem. So they're just pushing, and they're mostly focusing right now on construction. So all their eggs right now are in the construction basket since they're not running operations now. So that's always a good thing. But it will be back. Brightline will return back, as we've heard from Benport before. Right now, they're targeting Q4. At the end of this year to hopefully get back in service there in South Florida. Masks will probably be needed and whatnot. By the way, speaking of masks, I got this from Rick Harnish at the high-speed rail lines over here. So I got a mask over here. Let me see if I can put it on. There we are. There we go. Ta-da! It's got a little nose thing too. Alright, you probably may not hear me as well, so I'm going to have to scream a little bit more, but there we go. You see we got the high-speed rail line, so they've been doing a fantastic job of their their brown bag lunches and their webinars, which I was on one today. So thank you as well, Rick Harnish at the High Speed Rail Alliance, for providing these masks, and you guys can get them too if you go ahead and support them. If you're not a member of the High Speed Rail Alliance, it's also a good thing to do. Okay, but you can also be a member here if you're not part of the Patreon. We're getting more stuff on Patreon, which, by the way, also big news today. We're opening up a P.O. box so we can finally get our stuff shipped out. The other thing too, we need to get them, but we finally gonna get them shipped out. So hopefully we'll get that done and get everything out by next week. So for those of you who have won prizes, who have won, I'm printing more of these 3D trains. By the way, we're also printing. We know Crowbar K won the last little 3D printed train, but right now I have a 3D printed steam train whistle that is right now going hot off the press. It's about an hour and 30 minutes remaining according to this, but let's see how that goes, and maybe we'll have one lucky winner on the calls on Discord be able to go ahead and win that, just like the last time. So if it finishes closest to your call, you win the whistle. But yeah, this is pretty good. Oh yeah, we were talking about the Cato Institute in the articles. Yeah, we're going to be talking about our Lolbert friends. As you guys know, again, I'm pretty conservative, sort of nationalist in a sense that we want America's infrastructure to be number one, and we want what's best for America's, right? But libertarians, I used to be like an unabashed libertarian back in high school, and when I look back on it, it's like, oh man, it was so cringy in a sense. But these guys at the Cato Institute, they keep up with this hypocrisy that trains for some reason don't work, they don't make money, etc., etc. So we're going to see that, a rebuttal as well, from Rick from the High Speed Rail Alliance that he wrote, or somebody at the High Speed Rail Alliance wrote, but it's from the High Speed Rail Alliance, and they wrote a rebuttal to our favorite tool of the transport elite in this country, Robert O'Toole. The Tool. That name just works out so well. Yes, and we do have the best secretary ever, Holly. Love of my life. Yeah. Thanks to her, she's the one that was getting the P.O. box. So thank Holly for getting the P.O. box on time, because if it was up to me, I'd still be messing around with getting the which is still important, to get the New York versus Tokyo Metro. But that's the thing, I'm a very one-track minded type of person, and when I get focused on one thing, everything else can just, fall ahead. World War III could be happening outside, and I'll still be focusing. Although that may be getting closer than than we suspect. But anyway, yeah, we'll be talking about that. Yeah, and the Reason Foundation as well. Again, if you guys know any little bit about libertarians and whatnot, really, so Ludwig von Mises was the original maker, or the original person behind the Cato Institute. It basically got stolen from him, and they made the Mises Institute or whatnot, which they're closer to like real libertarians. That or Hans Hermann Hoppe. That's one of my favorites. Yeah, he who must not be named. Yeah. There's a lot of he who must not be names. I'd rather ride a train than fly in a plane. Yeah, a lot of people would too. Most people do. But let's get on to this. So Miami-Dade is now seeking federal funding for the Miami-Aventura commuter rail service, which is good. This means now that this Dade County is looking to other sources of funding, especially now with Biden in the White House. There should be an easier avenue now for these local municipalities in order to incur funds and incur grants or loans, etc. Most likely, these loans turn into grants because they, a lot of them don't get paid back, but that's just the way things work. But I just want to put in something right here with disclaimer. It is not Brightline that is asking for loans. It is Miami-Dade County. So before somebody goes ahead and sees, look, Brightline is now going ahead and taking government money. No, it's not. It's Miami-Dade County who is working together with Brightline in order to work on this project. And again, this wasn't a part of the original Brightline plan. Just the original plan was just Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, Orlando. Okay? They've seen an opportunity to provide a commuter service and Dade and Broward County, possibly to Palm Beach County to Palm Beach County regardless, because they have the West Palm Beach station. But in all of South Florida, they'll be able to provide commuter service, because now they'll be able to have stations in between their main stations in order to provide that type of service. So that's very good. Miami-Dade County has applied for federal funding for its proposed Miami-Aventura commuter rail service, which would operate on the southern end of Brightline's Miami-West Palm Beach route. This is from the Miami Today. And they submitted Infrastructure for Rebuilding America grant. Okay, that's with the U.S. Department of Transportation. I believe these Infrastructure for Rebuilding America's grants, they were, I think they were, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they were started under some form or another under Trump. They never really got used, and now Biden the Biden administration, Buttigieg and the DOT has revived them and made it easier for transit boards and municipalities in order to go ahead and get these grants. So they're getting for a grant, which they would not have to pay back if they were able to get a grant. The county is hoping federal funds will cover about half of construction costs. Initial costs of building rail and station infrastructure and maintenance facilities and acquiring trains has been estimated at $375 million for the 13.5-mile system. A spokesman for the Department of Transportation and Public Works say discussions with Brightline about operating the route are ongoing. And we saw last week or a couple weeks ago, they signed the deal, so it is official that Brightline is going to Aventura and later on to Boca Raton. I wouldn't worry so much about the port of Miami, because that whole deal with Virgin has, kind of fizzled away. If you guys have not seen, we have put out a new video concerning the whole Virgin deal with Brightline and what's happened with them now. So if you haven't seen that yet, just go ahead and click down on the channel. It's the most recent video yet. But, that's what it is. See in the comments. Yeah, politics that runs trains on time is always a good thing, Stalking Horse. Yeah, no multi-track drifting from me, yeah. Well, sometimes, here and there, I'll lose myself and, I'll get distracted, and then there'll be multi-track drifting. Hello, Adam. You did not miss much. Everybody's, I think, is doing well tonight. If you're doing well tonight, just put a 1 in the comments there. So let's get some 1s going in there. I don't know, maybe we can pick up something else. Everybody keeps using 07. But we're not saluting anything here. So yeah, we are doing well. Hope my comments are on. I may be missing some comments now, because every time YouTube does that, it keeps freezing sometimes. Not quite sure. There we go. Okay. All right. So it is on. Yeah, and that's basically. There's some little thing here about the Honolulu Rail Agency. I haven't really covered Honolulu that much. It's not part of the contiguous United States. Then again, we've covered Alaska a little bit here and there, but Hawaii, I don't really have that much of a connection to it, nor anybody here is really that interested in Hawaii, and they've been having some issues with their transit agency. I haven't really taken that much of a look in it. From what I've seen, it looks sort of a similar mess like the California project, but this has been going on for quite a while. So I try not to focus on all the negative stuff, but we have to talk about the negative stuff sometimes in order to go ahead and tell where everybody is right now. Speaking of good things, according to this Association of American Railroads, rail traffic has rebounded from the pandemic slump. So you can see here again, we're covering a little bit more of freight railroads too, because that's also important. We can't get most of our goods without the freight railroads, which we do have the best freight railroads in the country, don't we? There we are. We got plenty of 1s in there, except Ruben has a 2 or 69. Well, I don't know what that's supposed to signify in the chat, but hey, at least Hart will open this year. Yeah, Houston area rapid transit. So there's a lot of good things happening. So look at this. While comparisons with 2020 are skewed because of the effects of the COOF, which, by the way, guys, when they come out with the new statistics, because I use a lot of passenger car accidents in the United States. 2020 is most likely going to be skewed again because there's less people on the road. So it's instead of our usual 40 to 50,000 people killed on roads every year in the United States of America due to accidents, it'll probably be somewhere within the 20 to 30,000 range. But it's still a big problem. And the funny thing is that there's more people who die to cars than to guns here in the United States, which is funny because the media loves to point out to guns, especially this week with everything that's been going on with the Biden administration and their plans to take away all our funds. But the thing is that the majority, like 2/3 of guns deaths, are due to suicides. So those suicides are going to happen regardless of guns or whatnot. Yes, car accidents happen because of car accidents, but it just goes to show you, even in aggregate, there are more people who die to cars than there are to guns. But there's nobody going out there to go ahead and take away cars, which there needs to be something. There needs to be another option for people in order to get around, not just through automobiles, right? That's what we want to push for. And rail is far safer than automobile. It's far more convenient, safer, and faster. So. Well, convenient if we can able to plan it right, because if you have a station that's close to you, then it becomes more convenient, and if you're going to some place that's by a station, then it's even more convenient, right? But if you're, in a Tokyo metro area or New York or something like that, then it makes sense, which I keep bringing them up. What Amtrak routes have the highest ridership? Definitely the Northeast Coast would be the first, but outside the Northeast Corridor, the Auto Train, Chicago to Milwaukee is also there. In the Pacific as well for California, those routes are also very important. Those are basically the biggest ones. But yeah, so this is pretty good. Everything's going up. This is funny versus 2020 motor vehicle parts 300%. So the automobile industry owes a lot to the rail industry. That's always funny. But more or less everything else is flat. I think, again, that's probably mostly due to many people not buying new cars last year, although this year there isn't that many people buying new cars at all this year. In fact, the used car market has shot up a lot because people aren't buying new cars. And at this point, honestly, the American car industry is basically dead sitting in the water. That's really the reality of it. It hasn't really come back since 2008. It was starting to come back. And if it wasn't for the ridiculously flawed, terrible cash for clunkers law, the vehicle market would be a heck of a lot more easier for, let's say, younger people to actually get a car. But that's a lot. All right, so this is interesting. Of course, Amtrak is returning back to a lot of places now since restrictions are easing on the pandemic, and people are slowly and surely starting to get back. So this is something good here that, they're coming back to Vermont, restarting in July. So this is pretty good. So the Vermont Agency of Transportation announced that services should resume starting July 19th. Last March, we suspended Amtrak service in and out of Vermont due to COVID, said Dan Delabere. I guess that's his name. Probably butchered that, but okay. The services include the Vermonter, running from St. Albans through Massachusetts and Connecticut all the way to Washington, D.C. There's also the Ethan Allen Express connecting Rutland to Albany and ending in New York City. Both options will return to the normal schedules and normal fares. All right, the Amtrak restart is really based on the data, Delabere said. If you look at Governor's Vermont plan forward, it looks like the anticipated vaccination rate, and by July, it looks like our vaccination rate should be pretty high. All right, so they're basing this on the vaccination rate, which is, hey, if they want to do it by that, that's fine. There's a lot of let's be fair with the vaccines. There's a lot of mix from people. I know the media wants to play it one way, but you guys know how the media likes to play things. So just because they say
more than a year since Amtrak services stopped in Vermont because of COVID-19, but
speaking of the media,
news today, they're coming back.
NBC5's Carolyn Sistran spoke with the Agency of Transportation and local railroad experts about the importance of the trains and their return.
Well, there you go.
Well, a smile, of course. It's something we're looking forward to.
The return of Amtrak to Vermont Railways.
Last March, we suspended Amtrak service in and out of Vermont due to COVID.
But trips are starting back up July 19th.
So there we go. That's pretty much it on that. And now we have some new photos. This came out yesterday. Acela testing on the north end of the northeast corridor. So yeah, operation up to 165 miles an hour. So yeah, they're still testing it, and hopefully by I believe by the middle of this year, by the summer, they're going to be starting Acela service in full swing. Which, you know, it's kind of funny on a lot of fronts. It was Biden that helped to get the new train sets, the Acela train sets, in his last when he was vice president during the Obama administration, and now he's back as president, while the Acelias are now about to unveilia, I guess. But the cool thing about this, I'm sorry, not the cool thing. The bad thing about this is that it's coming out at a time during the whole coup, BS. So it's not going to be as big as it should be, as it would have been without all of this. So, I mean, it's what it is. We're getting it, so that's the good thing. And this was something out of the Wall Street Journal over here that I found interesting. Amtrak wants rail travel to be a better alternative to short flights, long drives. Railroad aims to duplicate Northeast Corridor success. Critics say $80 billion plan is a waste of money, which is funny because we spend billions of dollars on absolute complete wastes, but whenever we actually need transportation or anything that is actually going to be of a benefit to the American people, they don't want to waste that money, So this was out on April the 4th by Ted Mann. The Biden administration's plan to spend $80 billion rebuilding the nation's railroad assets could enable Amtrak to pursue the ambitious goal of providing a rail alternative to flying and driving nationwide, as it does now on the eastern seaboard. And we covered that last week on where they're splitting off the funds. Again, they're finally pushing a lot more funding toward rail. Rail is getting about at least now 30% of the bill. Again, the only problem we saw with the bill is that there was a lot of money put in for electrifying the United States for electric cars, or getting that infrastructure ready, and a ridiculous goal of 500,000 charging stations throughout the United States by the end of the decade, which is not going to happen. They talk a lot of crap. That's definitely something that's not going to happen. Yeah, that's really where we are right now. Oh, we have to read the full story? Oh, well, that's not going to happen. Watch this. For those of you guys that don't know, there's a great website to go ahead and circumvent the lamestream media's BS to collect your advertising bucks. Oh! Looks like somebody archived it 4 days ago. Well, whoever did, you're a hero. There we are. There we go. We have the whole thing. Sorry, Wall Street Journal. It looks like you're not getting my advertising bucks today. That's too bad. There we are. Providing more frequent daily service could generate gains in ridership. We all know that Amtrak contends. So here we go. Or the tool. The tool. We're gonna call him the tool. Just because somebody built a rail line 50 years ago, 100 years ago, doesn't mean we have to pay to maintain them, said Randy O'Toole, a senior fellow at the Libertarian Cato Institute and a foe of government spending on mass transit. But he'll be right there up front and center when we need to spend money on whatever three wars are going into now, because we have Russia and Crimea now. Russia's massing in on the onto Crimea. China is sending more planes into Taiwan, and Taiwan is getting really upset about that. And of course, our friends in the Middle East are two great friends, Israel and Iran, are having a giant spat with each other. So we'll be back in the Middle East for round 3, I guess, at this point. It's been forever. We haven't. A lot of you guys have been alive without seeing an end to the war on terror, and it's kind of frightening. Because I'm old enough to remember when the world was not at war there in the Middle East, and it's just weird now just to think of it as for all of our adult life, and some kids are going to war over in Afghanistan and Iraq, and they weren't alive for 9/11, which is weird. It's very sad that we've been there for a long time and we have nothing to show for it. except lots of death. It's unfortunate. Look at this guy. We have newer technologies. They're called buses. Really? We have newer technologies. They're called buses. Well, enjoy your bus, Randy. Enjoy your bus, you tool. While everybody else is on maglev, and we'll be on our buses for the rest of our lives here in the United States, and then we'll wonder why we're so far behind. Unbelievable. Amtrak's plans follow recommendations developed over the years by state governments and studies by the Federal Railroad Administration under both Republican and Democratic administrations that recommend building out regional rail networks in the Southeast, Southwest, and Midwest. Which, by the way, that would be interesting to do if I could have a debate with Randy O'Toole. That would be interesting. I wonder who would facilitate it. I don't know if I could facilitate it here without seeming biased or whatnot, because I want to seem as unbiased as possible. So I don't know, maybe there's another channel that will do that or something like that. That would be cool. I don't know, but yeah, I'm thinking about that, definitely. I had his book somewhere that I was reading, and I was like, I had a whole lot of points that that had counterpoints to, but since we moved over here, all the books are everywhere, so it's what it is. So yeah, Amtrak is following recommendations they've been pushing for forever. As auto and air travel continue to grow, demands for alternative mobility and solutions will likely grow. The agency wrote a report on developing a Southeast regional network released in 2020. This is from the FRA. Now, the same report found the potential of significant demand for improved rail connections between major urban centers in the region, also recommending increased service on emerging feeder lines to areas that have little or no passenger rail service. Yeah, we have to start, because that's the thing. Everybody keeps saying, oh, but we don't have rail lines to the middle of nowhere. Well, because there's been no demand made up there because, first of all, we're not focusing too well on our main routes, right? And those aren't doing well. And then when we have these sort of half-assed routes, these long-distance routes that do go to places that aren't, in metro areas or aren't serviced as much, you don't get that much support, and a lot of these places tend to be in more Republican states, and they're not going to really support Amtrak as much. There's going to be some Republicans that do support Amtrak if their constituency is from an Amtrak-dependent region. And that's saying that they have more Amtrak passengers, and they really do have flights like Essential Air Service or stuff like that. Okay, and there are a few places like that exist. However, not as much as there are, because that service and that demand has diminished very, very sharply since the 50s, since that generation. But that's just the reality of it. Yeah, they're called buses. What a stupid thing to say. Unbelievable. Yeah, these are the again, when we talk about boomers, these are the type of people that we're talking about. The NIMBY type of boomers, and the people that say we don't have buses. There was another guy on there who was talking about who was talking about that Brightline is not going to make money, and he also worked for like a bus advocacy group or something like that. Or he was getting a ton of money from that. I think like one of his last names was like something that ended like in Bergstein, something like that. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, I'm being serious, guys. But anyway, an FRA model estimated that building out more interconnected rail service in the Southwest included some of the route upgrades Amtrak has proposed that could alleviate demand for the highway system, avoiding up to 6 billion vehicle miles traveled per year by 2050. The FRA's report on the Midwest is expected to be released later this year. Again, there's a need for it all over the place, right? So, hopefully, if they can get this $80 billion for railroads, this is going to be a lot more than what Obama got hashed out back in his term, okay? Which was about $12 billion. And a lot of that got spread out to everywhere. There needs to be, a focus on the Northeast Corridor, and a focus on corridors that are getting a lot, like the Midwest core region, like the Southeast, and like California. If they can go ahead and put to those 4 regions, then the rest of the regions are going to be able to follow through. And that's what you got. You got to focus on your core. It's what it is. Yeah, buses should be mainly for intercity travel. Look, they have buses in places like Japan and in Europe and whatnot, and they're still very much used. It's a different service. If you want a very low cost service and you don't care how long it takes for you to get there, then fine, then you can take the bus. But if you're in more of a hurry and you want to get to some place in a reasonable amount of time, then you can take the train. They have all those options in these places. And again, the Gateway Tunnel, which is very important. I know they keep saying held up by Donald Trump. In reality, it was more held up by Elaine Chao and the FRA. But yeah, it was during the Trump administration. But yeah, this is where we are right now. So hopefully this can work. Yeah, there's really not much else in this article that we don't know about. So this is good. So I mean, hopefully we can just keep pushing on there. Oh, by the way, here's something interesting. So Biden went ahead and tweeted out. Let's see if we can go ahead and see it. So this is a good tweet. 200 years ago, trains weren't traditional infrastructure either until America made the choice to lay the tracks. All right, that makes sense. It's funny how the top tweet is, I speak for everyone here when I say we want our beautiful Trump back. I guess Twitter couldn't suppress that comment as much. But the rest of these are interesting. Talking about trains, President Biden may want to send a team to China to study how China built its magnificent high-speed rail system in a matter of 10 to 20 years. More like 10. And this guy keeps putting stuff on there. Again, Chinese-affiliated media, of course, but, I would send somebody to Japan. I wouldn't send anything to China. Especially if we're going to be going to war with them in a sneeze at this point. Because we do have an obligation to protect Taiwan under our agreement. There is so much win-win cooperation if U.S. abandons its containment strategy that will make both poorer. Again, you see that's the type of thing anyway. But I'm not going to get too much into geopolitical politics. You guys know how I feel about China. So again, there's a lot of stuff going on there. But hopefully, look, we do need it, right? We do need it. And there you go, the U.S. High-Speed Rail Association saying, time to lay down some high-speed rail tracks, Mr. President. And we got the one of many maps that have come out. Well, this is the one from the U.S. High-Speed Rail Association. But again, we can look at that. Where are the biggest lines? This is like a 10-year-old map or 12-year-old map that they've used, but it still holds true, right? Even though, yeah, we have Brightline that's coming over here. But all these ones you see phase 1, there's a reason why they're phase 1 is because they're the most important ones, right? So we have seen companies or we have seen groups that have gone ahead and pushed for those, like Brightline over here, which is going Miami, Orlando, and then soon to Tampa, and to also be connecting Las Vegas to Los Angeles. We have California High-Speed Rail that's building over here in the Central Valley to hopefully connect San Francisco, Los Angeles, and all that combined. We will talk about this in the live stream, not this one. But this does deserve its own dedicated episode about the Pacific Northwest and the Cascadia region over here. Again, we have, I don't know why my nose is so itchy. We have over here Chicago, Milwaukee, Indianapolis, Toledo, Ohio, St. Louis. Again, the whole Midwest over here, which is a very massive region. Where you see these little blobs over here, these little circles, that's where you have major metropolitan areas. So again, the Midwest. Pretty dense and close apart. The South, also very dense, close apart. Florida, dense, close. The Northeast, definitely. So again, these are the areas where they need to focus on, right? And when I say the Southeast, that includes Atlanta, to Greensville and Charlotte, North Carolina. That includes all that as well as Florida, right? Dallas to Houston, of course, by Texas Central Railway. So again, we have seen this coming into motion. Not as much as these people. A lot of these associations have planned that out. That the government will go ahead and plan these out by phases and whatnot. The federal government is not going to get that done. It hasn't happened, and it's not going to happen. And thank goodness that there's actually some companies that have come forward. Because if it wasn't for Brightline, we wouldn't be anywhere forward, right? Brightline has really changed the game over here. Why? Because they're building and because they exist. Okay? Because you can actually see the trains on there. and they haven't taken as much from federal dollars or anything like that. The only funding that they're getting is from the counties that are building these stations. In Orlando as well. The Orlando station is not built by Brightline. The Orlando station was actually built before Brightline, because some people think that, it's a Brightline building. It's not a Brightline building. They do have an office in there that they're leasing from the Orlando Airport Authority. So they're using the station, okay, but they don't own the station. So there's a difference in there. All right. And then there's this interesting article that I found on here that America's roads and bridges are fine. I don't agree too much with this article. I get the point of this article of what this guy's trying to say. I guess Matthew Iglesias. I guess what he's trying to say that we don't need to focus as much on bridges and roads because they're fine. They're not really crumbling as much as we think they are. So we should just focus on the other stuff. Like he says in the subtitle, let's do the broadband grid and water stuff instead. I don't tend to agree with that, and there's a lot of reasons why, and there's some evidence that is skewed over here. I'm going to take a break a little bit. I'm going to get something to drink, and I'm going to go ahead and see why is my nose itching so much. So we'll be right back. Stay tuned, and then probably after this, we'll have 2 more articles to go after, and then we're going to have our live phone calls on here. So if you guys are not on Discord, get on Discord. We have already somebody who's going to be next in line. Let me check over here. Yeah, so if you're in the queue, we'll put you in there depending on who you are. Probably this time we're going to go ahead and try to get some new people first, okay? Because I know we have a lot of people who have, a lot of the same people who've been coming on. And by all means, if you want to come on again, absolutely do. But we want to try to get priorities to some new voices so we can get some, other voices and questions in here. So if you guys have a question or any concerns or anything you want to get, or want to talk about, or maybe there's some plans in your area that you want to get on, go ahead, get on the Discord server. Link is in the description below. On Transport Central, enter into the queue, and then we'll put you up next in line, and then we'll have a conversation. And again, also another thing, try to keep it under 5 minutes, okay? I know I talk a lot sometimes, and I'll ramble on, and I'll do my best in order to keep that to a minimum, so let's cooperate so everybody else can have a chance to get on there, all right? So we'll be right back after these messages.
Big and strong, work away, work away. They've opened up a continent from sea to shining sea. A heritage they passed along and left to you and me. Roll on, America, till those ferries, till those bridges. Roll on, America, rail those houses by. Roll on, America, for that's the glory. Roll on, America, when those bridges burn that glory. Roll on, America, when we can sing the song of America. Roll on, America.
Roll along. That's what we've been doing, haven't we? That's what we've been doing for a lot of years. I don't claim much for my part, but gosh, when you think of all our American efforts together, I've gone and talked till it's time for the Hoosier to come in. I've got to go now. Say, how about you taking a ride up and down the Mona? See for yourself how she's still helping her part of America to roll along. I can't go with you, but the boys on the train will take good care of you.
Up and down the Mona, everything is fine, 'cause that rootin' tootin' Mona, she's a Hoosier line.
All up and down the line, you can see how the railroad has helped to create American prosperity. Farms producing great quantities of never be fully marketed without modern mass transportation. Factories which assemble their raw materials from a lot of far-flung points. and send their finished products everywhere. Towns and cities in which people have grown used to buying things which are brought from all over the world. Our way of life, which is literally a product of railroads at work. Take these factors which make...
All right, we're back. I think I'll make it worth the wait here. There we are. Just move that a little bit over here. All right. I brought a friend over. A little long boy mascot. We all know and love. Yeah, here you are. And he's got a new haircut too, so he's a little smooth long boy too. Say hello to Mr. Hansi here. He'll get a treat because he's been waiting so long. There you go, buddy. I know. Nom 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 nom. You're gonna eat me out of house at home, buddy. Get out of here. Alright, so there we are, a little smooth boy saying hi to everybody over here. Okay. There we are. And he smells good too. Wherever Holly took him to in order to get them all cleaned up. They did a good job. So, yeah, there we go. A resident Puppo mascot right there. And I got a little I tried putting out a little YouTube short or something like that, because I have a little pillow for him underneath here on the desk that he usually goes ahead and just relaxes and sleeps underneath here while I'm working or whatnot. And it came out poorly. I don't know why, but anyway, I got myself a drink as well. This is from a local brewery over here, the Fountain Square Brew Company. So that's what we're trying today. Since Lent is over and it's Easter, it's the Easter celebration, so the Paschal celebration. So we're celebrating chocolate milk stout Count Nebula. So it's a chocolate stout. I've never tried it before, but we're gonna see. So I've held on to it for weeks and weeks for now. So let's go ahead and check this out. Let's see what we're in the comments over here. Oh, thank you, Holly. There we are. Let's put on some synthwave or something like that. Get some beats going. There we are. There we are. And let's chill out a bit over here. Let's see what we got over here. Yeah, it's a wiener dog. Alright, so let's go ahead and pour this out over here. Looks like somebody's out the door. There you are. Perfect. So cheers. Let's test this out. Not bad. Although I smell more of the chocolate, I don't really taste much of the chocolate. Leia's just barking her head off out there. Okay, it's probably Holly's home. That's probably why. Alright. How does one sign up for the call? Again, just come into the stream. In the link below, there's a link to the Discord server. Join on in and get the queue. Apologies, I haven't put out a video to go ahead and tell people how to get that done. I probably should do that and put an intermission stream instead and say, this is how you can get on the call. Yeah, it is beer. You know me, I am a beer guy. It probably is allergies. It's a spring. Everything's out over here. Although I don't really have any allergies, to be honest. I think because I ate a leftover Big Mac that was in the fridge. I heated it up. Apart from having my regular dinner, I'm like, I'm just gonna have this as a snack. A Big Mac. That's just me because I'm just working out all the time now. So let's look at this over here. Back to this. Matthew Iglesias, crumbling roads and bridges are fine. And again, he's saying not that there's to say that there are 0 roads and bridges in the United States that could use a little repair, but there's just no reason to believe that the existing surface transportation funding levels in the United States are inadequate. We have some of the best commute times in the world in an international context. Our road quality is improving under current funding levels, and the biggest practical problem we have, endemic congestion in a few key metro areas, is not really amenable to be addressed with a big surge of funding. All right, so that's what they're saying over here. Mitch McConnell, here we go. Cocaine Mitch complained that Biden's plan is not about rebuilding America's backbone. Less than 6% of this massive proposal goes to roads and bridges, which is basically, enough what they deserve. Look, the states, the states should be more pushing on roads, right? It shouldn't really be that much of a federal issue. It really should be more on the states. The same thing with railroads too, but at least now there's there's pushing now toward a balance to the other side, which it's needed for a while. There needs to be a lot more to rails in order for this whole mess to get balanced out. So Americans have good and a number of options in order to go from point A to point B. Here we are. There are areas in which the United States is a laggard in international terms. Our relative child poverty rate, for example, has long been extraordinarily high. Refundable tax credit, blah, blah, blah. Other areas in American life that really stand out to me. Americans are exposed to an acceptable amount of idiosyncratic financial risks thanks to our threadbare health insurance system. It has a lot more to do with the Federal Reserve and predatory loans and whatnot, but on our credit system. But if you want to put it on, that's really what health insurance is really based off. It's based on the predatory loans and credit. It wouldn't exist if it wasn't for that. So, nobody wants to really talk about the real root of the issue, but that's Ken. Per capita levels of greenhouse gas emissions are the highest of any large country in the world. Okay, again, we know, of course, everybody knows China and India have the much larger than amounts per capita. Since we have around 350 million people. Yeah, sure, that's fair to say. Per capita, we have higher than any people with countries with a billion people. Yeah, but still, we've been doing a heck of a lot better for greenhouse gas emissions in the last 15 years than we're giving credit for. Much higher murder rate. I'm not gonna even talk about that. The child care cost situation is really bad. The United States has become an international laggard in the share of its prime age population, people between the ages of 25 to 55 that have a job, even though the whole point of America's unusually weak labor market protections is supposedly to encourage employment. Well, we talked about this a while back in some of the other streams, talking about how the boomer generation, when they were in their late 20s and 30s, they had about 30% of the income, not the income, of the wealth in the United States. And now millennials at the same stage of life as the boomers only have a sliver of that. They only have 4% of America's wealth. Okay? And again, there's a lot of reasons why. And there's reasons why I keep talking about this and bringing up social and economic issues when it comes to high-speed rail and passenger rail, etc. A lot of that, and a lot of what rail is in America really has to do a lot with the social fabric. Because you can see when we've had great, and again, it's not to say causation is correlation or correlation is causation, okay? But when we had a robust rail system in America, there was a lot more closeness, right? There was a lot more unity. There was a lot more jobs to go around. People didn't compete for jobs. Jobs competed for people. Okay, just like that meme of somebody can go ahead, like my dad tells me this story. When he went to go ahead and for his first job, he literally did shake the CEO's hand or whoever was the president at that time's hand and went to work the next day. That doesn't happen anymore. Okay, it doesn't happen, well, unless you personally know the guy and they're going to give you a job. But even then, through nepotism, it's very, very hard to get a job, and you can just see this on LinkedIn. An entry-level job is going to have like 500 applicants, and good luck if you have a bachelor's degree now at this point, because you even have entry-level jobs that, there's like 20% of the applicants are like master's or doctorate degrees. It's insane. All right. That's why I'm arguing for the return of mass manufacturing back to the United States, right? If we can get rails back into the United States, we got now blue-collar working on the railroads. If we can have our own base of manufacturing equipment, right? The steel, the electric lines, okay? The trains, the equipment, all of that. If we can have manufacturing back in the United States, then we can open up more of a market for people to have good paying blue collar jobs. Okay? That's what we need. Yeah. Let me see what's in the comments. But yeah, it seems you guys can agree. Yeah, we can still dream. Yeah, whoever wrote this article is BSing hard. Yeah, so look, there's some good things in it, and there's some things I don't agree with. This is why I keep saying, guys, when you look at statistics, don't just take the article's headline for face value, right? Go through it, look through it, Journalists don't do this, right? I'm one of the only guys, and not to say that nobody else does it. There's definitely a lot of people who do it more in the transportation industry, but definitely when I show you guys something, I'm going to look through it, we're going to talk about it, and we're going to have a conversation about it. That's why we're a club, because we have conversations. So here's this one I don't get. America's roads are getting better and better. So this comes from a report in 2019. However, the evidence only goes up to 2008. Right? A lot has happened in the last 12 years, 13 years or so. Okay? Right before a massive recession happened, and right before another massive recession, right? I guarantee you this is a lot. It's either stagnated or it's gotten worse, right? It's lane miles of interstate highway system, yeah, that's probably increased. But when we're talking about average roughness of the interstate highway system, it's gotten a lot worse, right? This graph over here that they bring out, it's probably a lot worse. Again, I'm not quite sure why this 2019 report, they did have some evidence and information that was current. But this part over here only stopped at 2008, which is why I have a problem with this. Of course, our roads have been a D-, and now we're up to a D. That really whoop-de-doo. This I don't understand. Quality of road infrastructure. The Netherlands and Spain have a higher road infrastructure than the USA. Switzerland, for some reason, is below us. I don't get this. Again, it's from the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum has a lot of mixed. Again, a lot of people have had a lot of problems with the World Economic Forum as of recently. That whole bit of you will own nothing and be happy. that sort of bit. But when it comes to this, okay, yeah, sure, okay, yeah, of course we're better than Russia and India. That's funny that India is over Russia, but the whole joke of the commie blocks with dirt roads sort of meme. I guess that happens, but I guess they're doing better than our Brazilian friends down there. Mexico is barely better than Italy. China barely better than Turkey. Japan worse than Canada, Germany, and Saudi Arabia. And Germany, here, see when you see Germany over here, like the creator of the Autobahn, below the United States, no. Especially when every German and everybody that comes over here in the United States says, oh, why are your roads so terrible and bad? Yes, I get it. It's anecdotal evidence. That shouldn't count to what's going on over here. But this over here, and I did go to see, where this World Economic Forum survey, it was based on a survey, right? That's not based on real hard data. If you're taking a survey and, somebody who's, there was that meme of, it was somebody like really overweight and he's saying like, I love the American lifestyle, sitting in her car and she's just like stuck in a traffic jam and going to KFC or something like that. that was, that's our road infrastructure. Yeah, it's great in that sense, but it's falling apart. Okay? Just because we stagnated doesn't mean it's great. So I don't get this. But yeah, if you're telling me that creating a new VMT to take our roads from better than Switzerland to better than Spain is widely popular, I have no problem with that. But everyone thinks it would be politically toxic. And why shouldn't it be? The roads are fine. That's where I don't agree. The roads are falling apart. We need to fix our roads too. So here's the American Jobs Plan. You guys can see this again. So we finally take it, because what it used to be over here for passenger rail transportation, this big block over here used to be like other, okay? Not even. It used to be this small. Finally, it's one of the top three, right? Including a bit from public transit. So if you kind of make that like maybe a third of public transit is going to rail, because that'll be rail transit. But that's what it is. $621 billion for transportation. 115 for highways, bridges, and roads, which is about what we spend, half of what we spend per year on fixing our roads and bridges. Nobody tends to get that we spend about that amount every year regardless. Public transportation doesn't get that much. Passenger and freight railroad doesn't get that much. Okay, I really honestly do think it should be getting more, especially versus electric vehicles. And this could be the problem. This could be the crux of the problem over here. And when I say the car industry, I'm mainly talking about the big three. The Detroit three, right? GM, Chrysler, and Ford. mainly GM, okay? If they're lobbying a heck of a lot to Congress to get them to build their infrastructure for electric cars, I have a massive problem with that, okay? Tesla, which is funny enough. So I know there's some people who don't like Tesla or whatnot, and I get that. But you got to give them credit. They got a loan from the United States government, and they paid it back within 5 years or so, or 7 years or so, or whatnot. GM never paid back their loan, their rescue loan from 2009 from the Obama administration. So Tesla has not only paid back their loan, Tesla went ahead and built their own electric charging infrastructure. So if GM wants to go ahead and build, charging infrastructure, fine. Let them do it on their own dime. How about they go ahead and bring back manufacturing back into the United States, get it out of China, get it out of Mexico, get it out of Canada, and bring it over here. Okay? Do that. And then maybe we can figure out a deal. But this is ridiculous. $174 billion for electric vehicles is stupid. And then the rest of it, research and development, workforce development, and manufacturing. What I'm concerned about over here is that this is all going to turn into just studies. That it's not going to be actual loans to manufacturing. Not that you're going to pay a $300 billion study. That'd be ridiculous. Caretaking economy. This never used to be a thing back in the days when people used to actually take care of their relatives, which you should take care of your elderly and whatnot. Should be taking care of families. Don't throw them in a home. But this is what happens then, because everybody else is paying the dole. That's why we need to bring families back together. But that also, families don't come back together unless we give fathers good working paying jobs back on it. I'm not saying we're going to go back to the 50s, but we need to bring some sort of semblance to having good paying jobs. All right. You know what this is, folks. Oh dear. It's the Cato Institute. They're ringing. Oh man, this is gonna be bad. But we're gonna talk about it. Here's my handkerchief. There we go. See, we're bringing back tradition, handkerchiefs, or handkerchiefs, depending on where you're from. There's different ways of saying it. Oh dear, Randy O'Toole. If you guys, maybe it has a picture of him so you can see this tool. There he is. There's Mr. Toole, our Lowell Burt friend. Oh man. At this point, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get a debate with him because I've talked so much crap. I don't know. Maybe people talk about crap about me, but I'm not going to deny a debate because people talk, shit about me. I don't care. I've got thick skin. I was in the time where it was Modern Warfare, Call of Duty back in 06, 07, where people used to say the meanest, terrible things to each other compared to today. Okay, come on. I got thick skin. I don't care. You can call me whatever words you want. Yeah, I am going to need a lot of beer for this. Okay, this is from Grambo. These plans that are presented here could be done better if it were done by private investments, local and regional demand, and much support. Also, cut the red tape and regulations. Yeah, that's, you need a mixture of that, and I agree. A lot of this has to do with regulations. If there was one good thing, and even if you're on the left, I think you can agree with this. If there's one good thing the Trump administration did, it was curtailed a lot of the EIS studies timeline. Instead of taking 3 years to take less than a year. Yeah, I mean, you don't need an environmental impact study to take that long. Come on, if colleges want you to give a whole thesis that's multiple pages longer within a semester, I'm pretty sure a multi-billion-dollar organization within the federal government can be able to get an environmental impact study done within a much more timely time frame. Give me a break. That's ridiculous. Yeah, I am gonna need a lot of beer for this one. Yeah, he kind of looks like a bum. I don't know. It's the lower Burt bums. That's what we are. The Libertarian meme. It's so 2008. You maybe had a chance, back in 2008, but at this point, it makes no sense, right? Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg wants to make the United States the global leader in high-speed rail. Nothing wrong with that. That's like wanting to be the world leader in electric typewriters, rotary telephones, or steam locomotives. Okay, just to look at this cognitive dissonance over here, this mental gymnastics, this dude went from comparing high-speed rail to wanting to be the world leader in steam locomotives. What? What did you just write? Are you sure about that? All technologies that were once revolutionary but are functionally obsolete today, yeah, that's why China is building so much more high-speed rail than we can count right now, and the rest of the world is being pushed ahead. By the way, we do have an article over here. Where is this? About spatial distribution and economic activity in Japan. Get ready for that one. You also need a lot of beer for that one. Not because it's bad or anything like that. Quite the contrary. It's a lot of information. It's a Japanese study. You know how they are when it comes to doing their studies. They get more information than you can get. Aside from speed, what makes high-speed rail obsolete is its high cost. Here we go again with the high cost. Unlike airlines, which don't require much infrastructure under the landing fields, this guy talks like a 12-year-old, like he doesn't understand that the federal cost that goes into airlines is ridiculous. High-speed trains require huge amounts of infrastructure that must be built and maintained to extremely precise standards. So, yeah, the airline industry does extremely precise standards as well. You want to talk about the Boeing 737 MAX? That's why airfares averaged just 14 cents per passenger mile in 2019, whereas fares on Amtrak's high-speed Acela averaged more than 90 cents per passenger mile. Again, he's taking the worst. I wouldn't say the worst high-speed rail in America. Well, it's the only high-speed rail in America technically, but in terms of the world, Acela is not that good of a high-speed train. Okay. Now, if you want to talk about the Tokaido Shinkansen versus, if you want to compare apples to apples, right? Compare the Tokaido Shinkansen to a Tokyo to Osaka airline route. Then maybe you'll have some sense there, okay? Comparing the airlines, which are heavily subsidized by the federal government, compared to the Acela, which is also, again, not as heavily subsidized as you might think, because the Northeast corridor actually pays back for itself. But and that's actually where they make a profit, Amtrak. That's where they make a profit. The airlines, not so much. And whatever profit the airlines have made, they went ahead and did stock buybacks in order to go ahead and be greedy little bastards they are. But that's what it is. And demonetized Diane. Oh, actually, the last time we had a couple people on our calls that said some things and said some words, right? And we haven't gotten demonetized. Which hopefully it stays that way. Although YouTube has been getting a little bit. As YouTube has been doing what it is, thanks to Susan Wojcicki. There's not enough memes of Susan Wojcicki of how terrible she is as the CEO of YouTube. But oh man, you know how people say "zucked" when something stupid happens on Facebook? This should be a term for Susan, Queen Susan, or more like Commissar Susan. We have to be culturally appropriate here. Highways require infrastructure, but not this level of precision. While a 4-lane freeway costs about $10 million to $20 million a mile, that's BS, California ended up spending $100 million per mile building its abortive high-speed rail line on flat ground. What's abortive about it? They're still building it. And it predicted building in hilly territory, which would cost at least $170 million per mile. $100 million per mile is actually what we spend on highways, and actually that's what California spends on highways. They were actually going to spend about $120 million per mile if they were going to put the same amount of capacity of high-speed rail on building a whole new highway between Los Angeles and San Francisco. But, of course, let's not talk about that. In 2009, President Obama proposed the United States build 8,600 miles of high-speed rail lines, 6 disconnected networks in the Northeast, South Florida, Midwest, South Florida. It's funny how Florida is our own, the own region. The Midwest, California, and the Pacific Northwest. Without ever asking how much this would cost, Congress gave Obama $10.1 billion, which I agree is a very small amount. He probably doesn't agree with that either. Randy just wants more money for the roads, which after adding $1.4 billion for other funds, Obama passed on to the states. Except in California, no one expected these funds would produce 150 mile-per-hour bullet trains, but they were supposed to increase frequencies, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we know what happened with that. Nothing much really came out of the Obama plan. Now more than 10 years later, you don't have to tell me, buddy. I know. Okay. All right. So this is also interesting. China has built 22,000 miles of high-speed rail lines, and that construction has helped put China's high-speed rail nearly $850 billion in debt. Okay, but guess what? They're probably not going to pay for it, and they don't care because they're not on the same system that we are. Since this debt is unsustainable, and many of the high-speed rail lines says a Chinese transportation economist are bleeding red ink, the country has slowed its construction of new lines. The reason why they've slowed their construction of new lines is because they've gotten the main ones done. They're just building a few small lines out to the periphery of the country. And this is the thing. This is what libertarians don't understand. You're not just playing on the stage by yourself, right? If you had your own little homestead somewhere and, you only had like 40 people on there and you wanted to, have your little, ANCAP community, yeah, sure. But even at that point, you're still going to have some sort of laws and regulations into what's good for you, right? And also defending your borders in a sense. Which is the problem is in our world nowadays, for good or for worse, because of how globalized we've become, it's a lot easier to get into more trouble in the world stage because it's that easy. Look at how fragile the world is right now. I just said it. There are 3 different flashpoints right now that are in the world theater right now that could potentially spark a massive war. World War III maybe, but a massive war which we might most likely get involved, right? Russia, Crimea, and Ukraine. Okay, you have Taiwan and China, and you have Iran and Israel. Okay, so sorry, the world does not work libertarian. Okay, China does not care about any of those values. China cares for its own primacy and China number 1. Okay, it's like that Red Alert game. China number 1. China will be doing everything it can to make itself top, right? It's not going to pay back its loans. They're going to say we don't care. They'll go ahead and start a war not to pay off their loans, which is what countries have done, right? When everything has gone low, they start a war in order to go ahead and bring up morale and also, I know I'm being very simplistic about this, okay? But in the broad spectrum of it, that's kind of what happens, right? And that's what China is doing. But China at this point is playing the long game. If it will have that debt for 100 years in order to surpass the United States and the West and Europe. Okay. Now, again, I'm not trying to make it an us versus them, right? And at least on this stream, I'm just trying to tell everybody that that's the way the game is being played. If we don't play the game the same way, or if we don't play the game in a way that's going to make us win, we're not getting anywhere. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. Okay. Yeah, and there's I really think there's a massive war going on, and where it's going on is the internet. Yeah, this definitely has been a war for everybody's ideas. But yeah, it's gonna be weird. It's gonna be weird, guys. It's gonna be some sort of cyber warfare along with conventional warfare. But I'm not gonna get into that. This is why I need another channel so I can talk about this stuff while I'm playing video games and drunk, and we can talk about conspiracy theories. Well, not drunk, because I've actually never gotten drunk. Yeah, a little tipsy here and there, but never have. And that's the only time, I've done it was very, very few times, and that's only with friends and family. I don't drink that much. It's only maybe once a week at most. Yeah, this is all I'm gonna have basically for the weekend. That's it. Okay, China's road construction isn't slowing down because the roads pay for themselves out of tolls. Not really, but okay. China's railroads, their Beijing to Shanghai line pays for itself. Highways drive economic growth because, again, he's just shilling for roads. Urban freeways are also the safest roads in the country. All non-freeway arterials are the most dangerous. Yeah, but again, he's saying that, see, if he was to compare rail to he keeps switching. All right, there's so many. You want to talk about logical fallacies? Since libertarians love to bring up logical fallacies, this whole article is filled to the brim with logical fallacies. Just filled to the brim. All right, I'm done with this. Yeah, I'm All right. 10-point reality check. Although I probably have gone over most of this, but this is from the High Speed Rail Alliance. The Cato Institute's new diatribe about high-speed rail repeats many of the fictions about skeptics of high-speed rail frequently used to distort the truth. This is why I need to get my myths of rail out at some point. There's a lot of stuff I got to do, but Tokyo versus New York comes first. Hopefully, if I can get this going, I can get this hopefully within the next 2 weeks. That's what I'm hoping. It's a lot of work. That's going to be a lot of work. Does ridership equal demand for service? Not necessarily. This country here itself, yeah, Darius, you have a point. I mean, America could very well, within the next 100 years, very much be balkanized. Well, probably it's going to be balkanized, right? But even then, even if you have separate countries within what was the former United States, there's still going to be a need for rail, right, to get back and forth. That's going to happen. So that's why I'm not too worried about that. Come rain or come shine, people are going to need rail. Here you are. Cato claims that high-speed rail became obsolete in 1958 when Boeing built the first 707 jetliner. Yeah, which they're still going the same speeds, by the way. All these jet lines. No, yeah. If you want to talk about old, and outdated jetliners. I mean, hey, we could have had supersonic travel at this point, but that's not happening. For different reasons. But whatever it is, the reality is nobody's taking supersonic travel. Well, that's not true, unless you're in the Air Force of any nation that has anything that goes beyond Mach 1. Then yeah, you're flying supersonic. But in terms of passenger airlines, no, nobody's flying supersonic. But hey, people are riding high-speed trains. Cato's either clueless, deceitful, or both. Both. High-speed trains didn't begin operating until 1964. And new high-speed trains are at the cutting edge of transportation tech. As with high-end cars, design breakthroughs are continually pushing the barriers for what's possible. Yeah, we're getting trains that are going to be going close to averages of 230 miles an hour. And not to mention, the French TGV back in 2007 went about 357 miles an hour, if I'm correct. 357 miles an hour. Okay, we're talking about like 100 miles an hour faster than a Bugatti Veyron. Okay, which goes about a top speed of 253 miles an hour. When you have a train, with electronics, and then they're standing up, messing around on the telemetry and whatnot, and TGV is going 350 miles an hour. Okay, so even steel-wheeled conventional high-speed rail still has a ways to go, and not even on top of that, we have maglev that can go even faster than that. That they can go easily 375 miles an hour, and probably even faster. They can probably reach 450, right? Which, again, that we don't need a hyperloop at that point, for a very low capacity system. There's no need for that. So there you go. Yeah, it's really a mess. Trains are high return investments to spur economic growth and connectivity across regions. This is true. Trains link small and mid-sized cities to each other, bigger cities, and we're actually going to see an actual study of this. That funny enough, they didn't put an article to according to that, but yeah, high-speed rail is faster than flying for all sorts of short trips and many longer ones. Yeah, we said this. To go between 300 miles, the train is actually faster than the whole plane trip, because again, yes, once the plane is in the sky, it's going at 30,000 feet, it's going its speed of 560 miles an hour. But the thing is that once you're in a train, you don't have to go that far. You just walk into the train station, get into the train, go from point A to point B, and that's it. Okay, you're going from city center to city center. You have to go to the airport, which is usually most typically outside of the urban area. Go ahead and get through, security and through the check-in and whatnot. Wait for everybody to board onto the airline, and then once you're on the airline, then it taxis, and then it will lift off, and then it will get up to cruising altitude, and then once it goes down, it has to go ahead and land back again, and you're doing the whole same thing in reverse to go back into an urban center. Okay? That's a lot of time. Okay? Now, past around 500 miles, yeah, that it makes sense to go ahead and take a plane. And we've seen this in everywhere across the globe, okay? Nobody that has an iota of sense in their head is saying that we're going to ban, air travel everywhere and you're only going to take a train across the country. That's not true, and that's ridiculous, okay? And again, I will stress that nobody with an iota of sense is saying to ban all airline travel within the United States, all right? I'm going to say that again. You know who I'm talking about. You know exactly who I'm talking about. A certain congresswoman from from the certain state of New York in a certain region, representative of the Bronx. New highways only create more gridlock. It's just true, okay? This is called induced congestion, right? Or I don't think I got the term right, but it just causes more congestion problems, right? Okay, so an analysis of 100 urban areas between 93 and 2017 found that the rate of growth in every new freeway lane miles exceeded population growth, but rather than declining, congestion increased by 144%. Okay, and more than doubled. This is a counterintuitive but well-documented phenomenon, the report notes. New roads and new lanes don't solve congestion problems, okay? They only create more gridlock, all right? Period. Oh, he added the period. See, again, this is what we're talking about, a good boomer, right? Here's Rick Harnish and his organization, right? Again, it's a minority of that age frame, but even if you take a poll of most boomers, you probably get upwards of 50, around 60% of them that support high-speed rail, right? Much more in the younger generations, but I would still say the majority of the baby boomer generation will support high-speed rail. I know most of you guys who are watching are mostly millennials, and we have a lot more Zoomers on the live streams, which is pretty fun. All right, so. Yeah, this is, again, it's going to be up to us, the torch is on us right now, okay, whether we want to see it or not. Private sector money is flowing into high-speed rail, okay? This is a fact the Libertarian Cato Institute should appreciate and celebrate. Texas Central Railroad, for example, is building a line from Dallas to Houston, and Brightline is extending its Miami-West Palm Beach line to Orlando, Walt Disney. It's also close to breaking ground on a high-speed rail line from Las Vegas to LA. Both companies expect to make a profit on the projects, and Microsoft is leading a coalition that's looking to bring high-speed rail to the Pacific Northwest. Wes Edens, one of the key investors behind the Brightline projects, recently called the lack of passenger rail in the U.S. both a travesty and a gigantic opportunity. People who actually have skin in the game can't afford to ignore reality. HSR is a great investment. Let's go back and see, in this Cato article, this is the only time I'm going to go back here and see Brightline. There are zero mentions. Zero mentions of Brightline. Okay, so that means either Mr. O'Toole is either an idiot, a liar, or both. An idiot, a liar, or both, right? Put it in Texas Central Railway, Texas. Texas doesn't even come up, right? Aren't these guys based in Texas? I think. Where are they? Where are they? Where are you guys? No, they're in D.C. Oh, of course. Oh God. They're cocktail libertarians to make it even worse. All they want is mass cheap labor. That's all they want. That's the problem, guys. You have some people like that they'll go ahead and take advantage of the system in order to make it cheaper for them. So they'll kick over and throw under the bus the average American citizen in order to just make a little bit more of a profit. That's wrong. Yeah, trains are safe again. Mr. O'Toole, the Tool, made no mention of how safe rail is. He only made how safe. Freeways are actually safer than arterial roads. No kidding. We've all known that. We're not arguing for that. We're arguing that trains are safer than automobiles. That's what we're arguing about. In the U.S., roughly 38,000 people die each year in roadway accidents. Yeah, which is the leading cause of death for people under the age of 55. That's more than guns. More than 4 million people are injured each year in road crashes, and the direct medical costs are nearly $400 million. Okay, well, it's more than guns in some years, but if you want to talk about gun deaths due to murders, it's close to 12 or 15,000, because 2/3 of gun deaths are by suicide. Now, I don't think many people are taking their car to go, well, yeah, probably have some people that are, taking their automobile and, going suicide by automobile, which is a terrible thing to do because most likely they usually get other people into accidents, which is the worst thing. When somebody goes ahead and, suicides by firearm, most likely they're taking themselves, right? By automobile, no. They usually hurt somebody else. All right. Oh dear, it's 9:20. Where has the time gone? All right. So let's go on to our calls and let's get this going. Let's get the night going and let's have our favorite time of here. All right. So let me just go ahead and put next in line. We have ES44AH. So let me just go ahead and put this out here. ES44AH. All right. All right. So here we go. All right. I know it's a little bit behind, so I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to give it like 10, 15 seconds or so for the stream to catch up, and we'll go from there. Yeah. Imagine if the same sort of article was put back during the Eisenhower era, talking about, why would we bring in, roads? All right, let's get this started. All right, ES44AH. You are on board.
Hello?
Hello, yeah, we can hear you.
Alright, cool. Oh, all right, so I think the topic I wanted to bring up today was the Acelas, because Amtrak was planning to scrap them.
The Acelas?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's a dumb idea because they're planning the speed upgrades in Northeast Corridor, some in New Jersey, 160 miles an hour. Same with down south of Baltimore. So, ACI 64s can't go that fast. They max out at 135, and the new Siemens cars can only do 125 they're rated for. I think that's dumb that they're replacing them, and even then, they could use them on the Keystone because they're still using the old Metroliner cab cars and stuff.
Yeah, Go ahead.
They're also planning to scrap a bunch of other stuff that's fairly new.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. That in the onset of it, when you look at them scrapping old tech, you think oh, we can use this somewhere else. But unfortunately, the main issue of why they're replacing the old Acelas is because Bombardier is not providing any more parts or any more service for those cars. Yeah. So and they don't have anybody else that's going to do it. It's kind of actually the same thing that happened at Concorde. The manufacturers were not going to provide any more parts or any service for the Concorde. That was the main reason why they got rid of it. So that's why
they could scrap a few and still run some.
They could, but the problem is the cost benefit of it. It would actually probably be cheaper for Amtrak to go ahead and buy more Avelias to replace more of the services. That's the real reason why they're choosing the Avelia from Alstom, which is that's really the reason why.
Yeah, because Caltrain was planning to keep one of their test AM7s in service.
Yeah.
Gallery service.
Yeah, and I get.
Think it's kind of,
Yeah, no, it's okay. I'll just be real quick. I get what you're saying with that, but yeah, just to be clear, the real reason they're doing that is because they can't pay anymore. It's becoming a much of a net loss in order to maintain the old Acelas, and that's why they're bringing on the Avelias, because it's just going to make much more sense.
Yeah, and also on the high-speed rail part, I think instead of investing more in the Northeast Corridor, they should extend it down to maybe Raleigh or something, or finish it all the way to Pittsburgh or something. I know that wouldn't be good for NS because they have clearance and stuff, but the Panagraph's tall enough. Same with the New York line up to Albany. They could electrify that. They could electrify the Springfield shuttle line. I don't think they should be investing everything in the Northeast Corridor. I know they try to crap it, but it's not. It shouldn't all be there. Right.
And again, yeah, you have a point. I mean, I agree with the fact that there should be most of it going into the Northeast Corridor, but absolutely, there's a lot more that needs to go across, at least in the other core regions where Amtrak is actually turning in a lot more passengers.
Yeah, and the new ALC 42 rolled up, but they're having problems with snow. The big vents on the side are sucking it in, and then they get, frozen or something. I don't know. But I think they have to solve that because they need cooling, and they can't get that without those big vents, and they get stuck in the snow.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. Well, right now since it's we're going into to spring. Hopefully now there's not going to be that much to do with snow. But hey, you know, it's something to learn for next season, right?
Yep, and I think if the Amtrak union workers cared more about getting their job done, because they take 6 months to do a 1 month jobs. It's insane, and that goes for all railroads, commuter railroads, freight railroads.
Yeah, there's a mixed bag in that. It's yes and no, and there's a point in saying that yes, the high unionization rate of Amtrak kind of puts that work environment, but I mean it goes a lot deeper than that. You can't just end it there that it's a unionization. Well, there's goods and bads to unionization. The way unions are in this country right now, it's not the same as it used to be back in the 50s. Yeah. They're not really fighting. And there's a lot of people who are part of unions because they're forced to be part of unions, and they say the same thing. We're just paying union dues, and the unions aren't helping us out at all. So that's actually a point to that.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's about it. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Of course. Thank you. All right. Let me see. Look in the queue. I forgot to put somebody next in line. This is what happens when I'm doing everything by myself over here. Let's go ahead and put Eastern Rail Fan YT, I guess YouTube, next in line. And then we'll go from there. And then we'll pick out somebody else out here in the queue and go from there. Let's give it another 15 seconds. But yeah, that's it. When I talk about the unions here in this country, and I hear from a lot of people who either let's say trucking unions or whatnot. Of course, the main one out there is Teamsters. That in a lot of cases they're forced to be parts of unions, and the unions haven't really been helping them out as much when it comes to worker wages and whatnot. I would say this. Especially we've seen this right now with Amazon, right? That most of everybody from Amazon. They say that people voted no for unionization at Amazon. I'm pretty sure Amazon had a hand in that. Which, by the way, there's actually it's a funny meme I want to put out there about what happened at Delta when they were unionizing. So it has a little bit to do with it, but there's a lot of reasons why a lot of companies now have this sort of relationship with unions that they don't like them, but the only time they're appropriated with them is that if they're trying to find some sort of common ground in which they can kind of take money away from all the workers. All right, so Eastern Rail Fan YouTube is going to be next here on the live stream call, and we'll go ahead and put somebody else next in line. All right, Eastern Rail Fan, you are on.
So am I allowed to talk about freight railroads or not?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I live in Florida, which means, and I also live on the East Coast, which would mean that I live right next to FEC.
Cool. We're in we're on the eastern coast of Florida because I'm from South Florida.
Right in Cocoa.
Oh, okay.
Well, I should say 10 miles away from the project, I should say.
Awesome.
Well, so you guys have probably talked about this, but FEC basically created PSR, but was not credited for it. In
okay.
Way, from say, early 2000s, late 1990s, they combined 3 Norfolk Southern trains into one train. Plus CSX got into the mix as well.
Right.
I don't know the exact NS numbers, but it's currently NS 209 right now. That is the main supplier, and then it's CSX off of a few Q trains. And then you look at, also NS is the same way because FEC has multiple ways of getting their freight to Jacksonville. With one thing which is kind of funny, that they have one local that can range from 5 cars to over 100. And that's just it's a local and a shuttle at the same time, so that is
right. Yeah, and the way precision scheduled railroading is now, there's a lot of mixed feedback about that. And I think we talked about it the last stream, because there's a lot of bad that a lot of the railroad workers have been overworked in order to be a lot more what's the term I'm looking for? A lot more efficient than they are. And that's sort of this efficiency drive that's been in the United States since around the 80s or whatnot, but it's just kind of gone into overdrive where everybody is supposed to be pushed to be a heck of a lot more efficient, but not really earn more in terms of a salary. But in terms of how the FEC did precision scheduled railroading, yeah, the way that you said it, they did a lot. And the thing is, it's a lot easier down in Florida because that's really just one straight, row with, just a few deviations here and there with, of course you have some bridges, but there's really no hills in Florida or anything like that. So it's a lot easier, a lot safer, and a lot cheaper to run rail in Florida. Of course, with the massive port there, with ports along all the coast of Florida. The way precision scheduled railroading was created there is a lot different than what the other Class 1 and Class 2 freight railroads have adopted to use.
You can also, CSX has just recently, over the course of a month, have started to take back their PSR, as in they've reinstated, I think, they've added way more locals than they did.
Yeah.
With bringing back several trains, and funny enough, just in time for Rail Watch, which is tonight and tomorrow.
Huh.
So, of course I'm not going, but they're starting to bring that back by reinstating Baldwin as more of a hub for locals than it was in Autorax, of course.
Right.
With unit rock trains, which, every CSX does not like. They don't like unit trains at all, except from like ethanol, phosphate, coal, and other things.
Yeah.
And with the COVID pandemic, you could see that wasn't normal. They would combine coal trains that would go to the same coal mine out of Florida. You would have EO40 and EO13 combined into a single train, which would make it over 13,000 feet with 6 engines, 3 in the middle, and then because they just slap 2 trains together.
Yeah, but then it makes sense with that. But like I said before, there has to be a middle ground when it comes to freight railroads in a way that it doesn't go ahead and overstress the workers, overstress the lines, and overstress the equipment while still making a profit. And those 3 big, these commodities that you're saying, of course, coal, ethanol, those are really one of the biggest drivers when it comes to freight traffic, which would be funny enough. They got rid of coal in the United States. That's also going to hurt railroads as well.
Yeah, which, surprising enough, the OUC, they still have their own cars. They don't lease currently.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for coming on.
Have a good.
You too. Take care, man. All right. Let me see. I'm gonna get you. Sort this out over here. Okay, I'll put you back on the queue. All right. We'll do one more call, and it's our good friend David Mitchell. All right, David, you are on.
All right. Well,
how's it going, man?
Doing good. It's something that I was going to bring up last week, but we ran out of time.
Okay.
And it was on the merger between KCS and Canadian Pacific.
Right. Yeah. Let me just bring that up like an article or something so people can look at that. But go ahead.
Norfolk Southern and BNSF are freaking scared of the merger, and they're trying to stop it from happening.
Yeah, especially BNSF. Again, that's a massive railroad company, and of course we know who owns that. It's mostly Warren Buffett through Berkshire Hathaway. So yeah, this type of large consolidations is only going to drive larger and larger consolidations in the market, which would hurt BNSF later on if that's this sort of thing were to become much more of a much more of a practice.
And I see the reason why, because Canadian Pacific and the Kansas City Southern merger would have rail line all the way from Canada all the way down to Mexico.
Yeah.
It would be the only Class 1 that would have full straight international rail line.
Yeah, and that's what they call themselves, like the first USMCA rail line, because they're covering the what used to be the deal before that. But now it's again, like I said before, if it results in having a much more efficient railroad in which the prices of goods for the average everyday American comes to a regular cost that's not too much, that's a good thing, right? But if it turns into a monopoly that starts to control costs and make everything a lot harder for the average American, then that's where we go into an issue. So that's really where it comes down to.
Thing that I say is that not BNSF, but the Kansas City and Canadian Pacific merger is not a monopoly. I can tell because BNSF is getting scared because they don't want competition. You know? Right.
And that's true, yeah, because they share some of the same areas, correct? There's some areas that overlap, yeah.
Mm-hmm. The only two railroads that are that are fine with it is CXX and UP.
Right. And those, CSX is more toward the east and UP is a little bit more west. Because BNSF is in the same area, which again, that's where I see where they're again not too thrilled about all this. Because again, if they have smaller companies, they have to go against. The same thing like Amazon. Why is Amazon so glad, and why is Amazon gaining a heck of a lot more business? Is now because a lot of small businesses, both online and offline brick and mortar stores, are closing down, and everybody's just forced to go onto Amazon. So you have that sort of same effect. Yeah.
And that right there is a monopoly. Amazon is a monopoly.
Yeah. And I do agree, it should be broken up, or there's got to be a lot more done to it, because we did the same thing with Standard Oil. There shouldn't be a problem with it. This happened before in American history. The railroads were broken up too.
Yeah. If Teddy Roosevelt was alive today, he would probably broken up Amazon. He would probably go after BNSF for that shit. Even Norfolk Southern, he would have probably gone after both of them.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Heck, he would probably even go after the interstate and the airlines.
Yeah. The airlines,
he
yes.
Would probably go after
the interstates are a whole different thing, because it's not really a monopoly. I mean, you have certain companies that are working a lot of these contracts there, but it's not really a monopoly as in terms to the airlines, which they have a lot more lobbying power concentrated in a much smaller contingency of companies. Whereas the roadways, there's a lot more companies, depending on where you are. There's really only a very certain small number of American airline companies, including American Airlines, United and Delta, that are really working to make sure that they still have concentrated power in the transportation industry.
I know if he were brought back to life, he would have gone after the airlines.
Yeah, probably. I agree with that. Well, again, thank you so much, David, for coming on. I appreciate it, man.
You're welcome. Have a nice day, man.
You too.
Have me a nice night.
Yeah, nice night. Yeah, take care, man.
Later.
Alrighty. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and let's look over to the next. But yeah, this is like I've been saying, guys. There needs to be some sort of balance over here. Speaking of balance, let's go ahead and look at some of our super chats, because we got some super chats. Funny enough, Communist News Network. This is some a username I would not have expected to even give out some super chats over here. Biggie Cheese says, keep the Acelas. Again, yeah, we talked about the Acelas in a previous call. Again, the reason why they're getting rid of the Acelas is because Bombardier is not servicing them anymore, and has already finished their contract of servicing the Acelas and said, we're done. Our contract is over. We're not fixing them up anymore. Go find somebody else. And Alstom went ahead and say, hey, we'll go ahead and have our trains. We have our new not TGVs, they're AGVs, which is what they are. The big difference between the TGVs and the AGVs, that the TGVs have basically the main motor up in the front, whereas the AGVs have they're electric multiple units, which there's units. Every single wheel has its own little electric motor. It's not a power car that's dragging and pushing. Sort of like how Brightline runs, but again, since Brightline is a much shorter train set, 7 trains in total, there's really no need to have electric multiple units, or diesel electric multiple units. So that's really what it is. All right, we have Star Force 97. Thank you. Well, thank you to Communist News Network. That's funny I'd be saying that. Never thought I'd be saying that in my life. But thank you also to Star Force 97. Question: do you plan on bringing Rick Carnish on to an ARC stream at some point? I probably will. I brought him on for some interviews, but I think it probably would be fun to bring him on to more of a live stream type of setting, which that's what I'm going to do the next several times. I'm not going to have these sort of closed, behind doors interviews and then edit and put them up. I think I've got it down to the point because I've been testing it back and forth to see if I can be able to have interviews live streamed and also have it set up so it comes out nice and neat. But we'll go ahead and be able to do that, definitely. We're probably going to have either Ben Porritt or Carlos Aguilar from Brightline or Texas Central Railway, respectively, probably put on. Whoever comes back first. So let's see. Rest in peace, Prince Philip. It's what it is for the UKers over there. I mean, me personally, I really honestly do not care about the royal family. Is it a sad moment for them? Yeah. But hey, it's what it is. All right. So let's go on here to the next article. Again, a lot of people now have been talking about infrastructure, and it's becoming much more mainstream. Which just usually happens every beginning of every presidential cycle, right? We saw this at the beginning of Barack Obama, where there was a lot of talk about high-speed rail and a lot of talk about infrastructure. And then the same thing happened during the Trump administration, which he was talking a lot about on the campaign trail. He was pushing for this big $1 trillion plan, and nothing really ever came up of it. The same thing with Obama's plan. Now Biden is, one-upping the $1 trillion plan under Trump, and it's going to be a $2 trillion plan. So we have that now. That's going to be the thing. But again, we're coming to the same thing, that there's a lot of talk about it, a lot of talk. But now, when is it going to come down to actual shovels and picks into the ground, and we're actually building massive public works projects across the United States to get people back to work and to bring back jobs into the United States? So that's what it is. Yeah. R.I.P. DMX. Yeah, I guess DMX's death is more personal to me than Prince Philip's. I guess that, as an American, but, DMX has had if you guys have seen his life story, I mean that guy had an awful childhood and upbringing. I mean basically his best friends were dogs because his dad left him, and then his mother abused him later on, and she had a string of ex-boyfriends that were hurting the poor kid, but yeah, he made it up from nothing to something. Those are the type of stories we like to see. Not somebody who was just basically brought up on the dole of the citizens. That's what it is. Sacrilege. You don't like the Royals? No, I don't like the Royals, Holly. Okay. Sorry, I'm not a fan. I'm not even like 10% Irish. So yeah, I'm definitely not gonna like the Royals on top of that either. Now, I'm mostly Spaniard and Italian, so yeah, I'm not gonna like the UK. I'm not gonna. Let's put it this way: I'm not gonna care about the UK royal family. Okay, I'm not. Let's be honest. Yeah, poor DMX died of a heart attack. Poor guy. Too soon. But here we are. Let's get on to talking about this here. So, we have a train whistle done. Let me see if I can get that off of here. Okay, so who we had on last, David Mitchell. So I think David Mitchell wins a train whistle. He's probably not going to get this one. This is like a prototype here. So he's probably going to go ahead and win. I'm going to make another one. But let me see if I can get this one out. Where's my screwdriver? There we are. I've been loving these 3D printers. At least giving me something to do while stuck here. There we are. I'm not stuck. It's on my own terms. All right, cool. We have a train whistle. All right. Bit of a problem over here. Okay, let's see this. Let's see. It works. It works. Fresh off the press. Although I probably shouldn't be putting my lips on just freshly done plastic, or else I'm gonna lose all my testosterone. All my gains are gonna be gone. But hey, it works, guys. So David Mitchell was last in the queue. Last on the call. So David Mitchell wins the train whistle. We're gonna make a different one for you, David. Hopefully, well, we'll probably have one with American Rail Club logo, and we'll probably sell them off as well. So I'm trying to make some cool stuff for all of us, so we can have interesting small things. Doesn't cost that much, because I know we're all poor. So if I wouldn't buy it, it wouldn't be sponsored on my channel. That's the whole thing. Because I have gotten some sponsored deals. The thing is, a lot of them are the things that are really expensive, like vacation deals with rail packages or whatnot, which is like, I get that. The thing is, A, nobody's really traveling right now, and B, most of my audience can't afford that. It's nice, but I'm sorry, most of my audience cannot afford a rail pass, unfortunately. I wish it was a different time where they could, and maybe if there wasn't a pandemic and foreigners were actually allowed to go to the Olympics, that would be a great thing to do. All right. Oh, buddy, you want to go outside? Okay, let me let this little guy outside. Give me a little bit over here. All right, come on, buddy. There you go. There you go. I have to let the little guy out. Okay. Well, let's hear. So this is the type of thing now, since infrastructure is becoming a big deal. We're going to look at some other articles about this. This is another one. Okay, for those who expect the newly announced $2 trillion Biden infrastructure program to be a goodbye to potholes and hello to smooth as glass expressways, a disappointment is in store. The largest expenditure by far, $400 billion, is on home community care, impacting the elderly or disabled. Okay, and it's... well, let's talk about this a bit. Why are we spending... where was it? We had it here. There we go. So here's the infrastructure plan, right? A big chunk of that is in the caretaking economy. Okay, if this is going to be an infrastructure plan, why are we taking care of the boomers, as you guys say, right? Why are we spending so much money on the outgoing generation instead of spending for the new generation? This has kind of been the thing in the United States since Social Security, right? And it's kind of gone on from there, okay? Yes, it is fair to say that the older generation cares a lot. Like when they talk about politics and they talk about what's the biggest problem for you, they'll go ahead and say, Medicare, which is funny because a lot of Republican boomers and Democrat boomers both agree on the same thing, but both conservative and liberal boomers both agree that, we want Medicare for both of us, for all of us, right? So, and that's the same thing with, older boomers, whether you're left or right, they're going to, we want our Medicare and we want our Social Security to be protected. And it's just funny because you turn on Fox News, Fox News, CNN, their average viewer base is like 65 years old or something like that, average. So it's definitely not a younger crowd watching cable news networks anymore, which is why they're all dying, including Fox News. But when you see all these commercials about Social Security, and we have to get, back in, during the Trump times, we have to get Trump to save Medicare and whatnot. Well, this is what happens. This is what happens. I'm just telling you the results. What happens is you're going to get a whole big chunk. $400 billion is not going to create jobs or business or anything like that. Again, if everything were to go according to plan as to what this whole thing says here, $400 billion is going to home and community-based care for elderly and disabled people. Now, again, is that needed? Yes. Should it be part of an infrastructure bill? Probably not. That should be part of its own separate bill, which is why I've always been for saying, we need to make separate bills for separate objects so we don't have, big, giant omnibus spending bills that you can hide in, within 2,000 pages of a bill, you can hide in a whole bunch of BS, which all these congressmen do. All these congressmen and congresswomen, they all do on both sides, okay? Both sides are do it, which is why I've never really been a fan of either of these parties, which is why, again, like I showed you guys the last stream, My party affiliation has been no party affiliation. Yeah, I'm more conservative. Probably the guy that I'll probably vote for is probably going to be 9 out of 10, probably a Republican. Am I going to expect him to do anything more than, or what I've expected? Probably not. But that's just the reality of it. Neither are the Democrats going to really do anything. But let's see if this all gets done. Let's see if this all gets done. Where are we? There we are. Again, I'm just spitting truth here. That's as they say. I'm just telling you guys facts. It's what it is. Let's just hope that we can get this going. That's all. So here we are. So American Society of Civil Engineers. The latest report came out at a C-, which, look, I still say we're D-, if not an F, right? There's no way, unless they're changing the reporting standards, which is most likely what they're doing. Although bridges worsened, this is a modest improvement over the previous report, 2017, when the overall grade was a D+. I mean, that would be funny if, we just gone from D- to D to D+ to C-. Okay? So if that is true, then we're slowly starting to get better, right? If $115 billion in spending sounds adequate, one has to remember it costs $27 billion annual for upkeep, which is, it's actually more than that for roadways. But yeah, this is what people don't remember. Just because you build roadways doesn't mean it's done. You don't have to go ahead and maintain it anymore. No, it still requires it. Astounding might be the backlog in spending for roads and bridges, runs at $12 billion annually. Go back 20 years and we have a $250 billion shortfall. Add all the other areas of infrastructure and the ASCE comes up with a $5 trillion total. Okay? So the whole thing about this is saying, there needs to be more than just spending money. There needs to be a concrete plan that's going to say, okay, step A, step B, step C, right? Here we are, talking about bridge infrastructure. One notable example of maintenance is the Forth Rail Bridge in Scotland, a crisscross of beams forming 3 superstructures linked together. It was a sensation when opened in 1890 and now is a UN World Heritage Site. Spanning 1.5 miles, its upkeep requires a regular coat of paint, and that it gets. Rumor has it that when the unobtrusive painters reached the end of their task, it was time to start painting again, the end where they began. A permanent job to be sure to keep through new paints might be diminished as such prospects. Yeah, and this is what happens. The whole point of that story is that you'll have roadways, and we've seen this everywhere, right? When they go ahead and patch up a pothole, they patch it up in such a silly, temporary, terrible way, which costs a lot of money, which costs more than it should be. They close off the entire road, and all you have left is just, they just patch it up. So it's a temporary job, and it will be back to being broken again 2 years later, after 2 more winters, right? That's the problem, is that we don't build things that last. We just want to have things to be in perpetual maintenance mode forever. We cannot do that. It needs to be things that last, okay? Which is, you look at the Northeast Corridor. There is so much infrastructure there that is over 100 years old. And it is insane that it has lasted. Well, it's insane because the people back then made sure that when they were going to make something, it was going to last for generations, right? Now, unfortunately, the culture in the United States has been so much about short-sightedness. And I've talked to, a lot of close friends about this. They don't think that CEOs, American CEOs, are that short-sighted. Yeah. 1 year for them is too long. They want results, and they wanted it yesterday. That's how it is for a lot of them. Not all, but most of the United States, which is why China is eating up our lunch. Okay, I keep bringing that up, but it's becoming much more and more apparent. I don't know what it is going to take people in order to get that. I've been saying it since I was in middle school. Apparently, it's going to take, I guess, a Red Dawn type of situation. Which at that point, I'll definitely be on top of the hill going Wolverines. I'm not going to take out one of these to actually go ahead and implement it, because YouTube has such a thing about having guns online on stream. But you can just pretend I'm going Wolverines. Okay, when that happens, oh man, I'm definitely not going to be going to China anyway at this point. They require their own vaccine now, which, look, even if I wanted to take a vaccine, I'm not going to take a vaccine from China to go into China to take video there. No way. I'm sorry. I'm not doing that. Nope. All right, so 80 billion for railways, which is what we care about. Anyone who has traveled or lived in Europe knows the stark contrast between railroads there and in the U.S. European high-speed rail networks are growing from the established TGV, or Tren Grande Vitesse, in France, to the new Spanish trains run by Renfe, the national railway, Alta Velocidad Española, the AVE. Or as you say it there in Castilian, Alta Velocidad Española, because they have to say it that way. It's I'm mostly Asturian, according to my DNA test. Asturian and Galician. Trains run at speeds up to 193 miles an hour, a speed that amounts to a convenient overnight trip between Los Angeles and Chicago. So yeah, look, they're able to get that done. Why can't we? That's sort of where it comes down to. Why can't we? Well, we've answered why can't we many times, but look, if Spain can do it, and China can do it, and everybody else can do it, there's no reason why the greatest country in the world can't do it. The hugely expensive new tracks needed can be considered a long-term investment, which they are, in our children's future, which is what we're trying to talk about. Okay, not just our futures. Okay, hopefully it's we'll have children of our own. If our all our testosterones still stay level, which like they say, like by 2050, men aren't gonna have any more testosterone. Which is I'm telling you guys, hit the gym or get some weights and start lifting weights. Start keeping yourself healthy, guys. No matter what's gonna happen in the future, keep yourself healthy, please. Okay, because there's, again, a lot of this is social and economic type of things that we're talking about, which is why we're talking about rail, right? We want a rail culture back in the United States, okay? We want that type of social interaction here, okay? We're not afraid of social interaction, okay? But it also it occurs to health, okay? Countries with transit are generally a heck of a lot healthier. You go to Japan, okay, you don't want to know what we call, what Japan calls an obese person over there is a much different definition of what we call over here in the United States, okay? And that's due to a number of reasons, okay? But, one of the reasons, okay, apart from diet and genetics and whatnot, one of the main reasons, again, is transit. They walk everywhere, okay? They take the train. They have cars, but they choose not to go ahead and have cars either for cost benefit. It's a lot cheaper to go ahead and take the train, okay? Even if they could afford a car, most people take the train. Most people take transit. That's what it is. If Spain can have high-speed rail and China already has 24,000 miles of such track, which, look at this, guys. Obama said he was going to get 8,600 miles of it, right? China started with, we'll basically call it 0 there, right? Although China had a bit of a head start, right? Okay. China, contiguous U.S. are about the same size, give or take. But China was able to lay down 24,000 miles of track in this whole entire span. We have not gotten 8,600 miles of high-speed rail in the United States. Okay, maybe technically 40 miles, right? Which, funny enough, Acela actually was more miles of track than what China had back in like 2007. Okay, let's be honest about that. So really, if we put the starting blocks on an even playing field, we started at 0, 2008, and China just went completely, just blew us out of the water. Particularly bad airplane pollution high above 26,243,000 feet results in greater ozone formation in the troposphere. In fact, airplanes are the principal human cause of ozone formation. Yeah. So again, we want to have clean air, right? I have no problem with that. Most younger people, even if they are, absolutely, goose stepping to the right, they all want, eco-friendly things, right? No matter if you're tanky, the most red as can be tanky on the left to the most goose stepping, a person on the right. I think everybody in this generation wants clean air. That's beyond the point. We don't need to argue about that. Nobody in this chat is going to argue about that because we all agree on that. Okay? I mean, there could be, but I'm not seeing anything in the chat right here. Yeah, that's called patch and pray. That we're talking about, patching up roadways here. But yeah, look, it's being talked about now. All right, let's get some facts in the house here. Here we are. How high-speed rail changes the spatial distribution of economic activity. Evidence from Japan's Shinkansen. All right. Now, this is sort of a long article, but I'm going to get to the main points over here. Again, the economic and social consequences of investments in transport infrastructure generate heated academic and policy debates. Yeah, we know. It's a lot of money, and they're going to bring up or promise to bring high yields. Okay. This column shows that the Shinkansen has had a substantial effect on Japan's spatial distribution of employment. The relative position of municipalities within the network and their underlying location fundamentals are essential in understanding why the effects of an extensive infrastructure are positive or negative at the local levels. And most of these are positive, right? So, again, I probably should have highlighted some of this. I was just going through this, quickly or whatnot, because I was thinking maybe this deserves its own video, or because this was part of some of the research that I was doing for Tokyo versus New York, because I was going just a little bit off of the networks that connected to it, right? Because that's important. You can't really have transit networks also rely a bit on having a robust inter-regional rail network in order to connect other people to use that network, or other people from that network to other networks, right? So you have a large connection between the entire country. So that's what it is. So let's go over here. In the recent paper, Hayakawa et al. 2021, we focus on Japan, which has one of the oldest HSR networks in the world, the Shinkansen. There are two main reasons why studying the Shinkansen, which means new trunk line, is important. Yes, Shin for new, kan for trunk, and line is sen. That's just as simple as it is. First, out of 160 million passengers per year, a very large share are technical workers and business travelers, about 65% in 2010. It's probably about that same number, give or take, before the coup. Again, you're going to have to throw out, studies from 2020 in terms of economics or whatnot, comparing economics between certain eras, because unless you're trying to compare, what happened before and after the coup, it doesn't really make, it's not going to be one-on-one, right? So here, such a site number strongly suggests that the Shinkansen may be considered as a transportation mode that significantly affects firms' location choices through the travel of non-production workers, whose share in Japan increased from 22 to 41% between 1952 and 2015. Okay, and we're talking about those people are mostly salarymen, right? Salarymen. Second, the first Shinkansen lines were built more than 50 years ago, so that one may expect their long-run effects on the Japanese economy to have materialized. Right, and it's not just that. You also got to realize Japan still has a pretty good manufacturing base. I would say a little bit better than the United States. And not only that, well, actually no, not a little bit better than the United States. Because I will say this: when I was in Japan, there were a lot more products on shelves that proudly said "Made in Japan." Okay, I even found an American flag pin that said "Made in Japan." Okay, you know how many American flag pins and American, flag stuff we have here in the United States as made in China? Here we go. Where's the, you know what I'm talking about, guys. You got to bring it. Buy American and hire American. Made in the PRC. There we go, guys. This is America. There we go. It's a running gag. We should put a meme or sticker, put the Trump knife and just put the Trump face and then put made in the PRC, really big letters or something like that. If I go ahead and make it, I should. That's hilarious. But the thing is that Japan during the pandemic actually paid $2 billion for firms to come back and take manufacturing out of China and come back into Japan, which is something we should have done in the United States, but Trump didn't do it because I don't know why. Well, there's a lot of reasons why, but I'm not going to get into it. To this end, we develop a spatial quantitative model. In this model, business-to-business travel can take place by train and by road, for example, using a car or truck. Similarly, workers can commute by train and by road using a car or bus. Using data on municipalities in Japan, we show that travel time by train affects business-to-business linkages, whereas travel time by road does not. This finding shows that the Shinkansen plays a crucial role in sustaining production networks in Japan. Furthermore, the model incorporates agglomeration economies, implying that firms are more productive in dense urban areas. Okay, so let's put that into layman's term. What does it mean? Because you have the Shinkansen in areas that is facilitating more travel, in that terms, you're also getting more companies that are putting bases in large areas, in urban areas, expecting more travel. Not only that, now you have not just the office workers or the salarymen, but you also have the blue-collar workers also in the same areas that are also benefiting from this increased amount of transportation, because now you have cities that are acting as hubs, basically, because now you have this available to go through, because basically you'll take these cities and they become mega regions, because now the time spaced apart from them has become so small. So it's like getting from town to town, or getting from one side of town to the other side of town, right? If you're going in by horse, that's about like 15 miles an hour. It will take you about 2 hours to get from one side of town to the other, right? It takes a bit of a while. But now, because you have a car, well, going between one side of town to the other is, turns to like 15 minutes or so, right? Now it's a lot easier to say, well, now I can go ahead and go over there to, do something or work somewhere. I don't have to, go ahead and move myself to one side of town. It becomes much more of a mega region. So that's really what it is. So spatial distribution and employment, yeah. Look, you can see extension of the Shinkansen networks, and you can see where there's no Shinkansen, employment hasn't really helped out, and it's actually gone down. So with more employment has actually increased in places with the Shinkansen, right? So that's what we're seeing. The second experiment shows that removing the Shinkansen would have a substantially negative welfare effects, as welfare would decrease by 6.5%. Tokyo and Kyoto, Osaka would be significantly larger, while Nagoya would be much smaller, about 25%. That Tokyo and Kyoto, Osaka have become smaller due to Shinkansen may be considered surprising, but note that firms can now set up their headquarters in cheaper locations while still being able to access the large markets of Tokyo and Kyoto, Osaka. So what does that mean? You can be outside. You can be either in Tokyo, the Tokyo region. You can be based either in Kawasaki or up in Saitama. Okay, but now because Saitama and Kawasaki both have Shinkansen hubs, you can live basically what was a suburb. It's like Saitama was like a suburb like 30 years ago, and now it's basically kind of part of the Tokyo mega region because of the connection to Tokyo through the Shinkansen. It's been made that easy. And even in like rural parts of Japan, some rural like towns and cities, which are like vacation towns and cities, have the Shinkansen. So now you can have a company that's based off in a nice alpine wooded region, and you can just be back in Tokyo within an hour. You go from just being on the top of a mountain to a major metropolitan area within less than an hour. Yeah, it's possible because they've been able to work on this system and have had it for over 50 years. All right. And then we'll talk about the last article. I've had a whole lot of other articles here, guys, but we're going a lot longer than we have. So we'll go ahead and do a last round of questions in the queue. And then we'll go from there, and then we'll take some more questions from the audience if we want, and we'll call it a night. So we're trying to make these thinner. I thought I was, like I always do, I thought I was going to go ahead and have less articles to talk about and have just more to talk about discussion. But as always, I put too much. But that's always good, just in case we'll never have anything to not talk about, right? Especially from my mouth. The mouth that keeps on going. Renfe announces possible expansion of ABLO low-cost high-speed services. So what happens when you have a proliferation of what used to be a high-cost product, right? You have economies of scale, which basically go ahead and allow what used to be, in layman's terms, things that used to be very expensive, because they're now being used a lot more and they have a lot more demand, now become less expensive. Remember these things? Okay, remember when Apple first came out with them? Nobody basically had them and they were ridiculously expensive. Now everybody's got one. And you can basically get one off of Amazon for like $90, some BS name out of China, like, Happy Smile Company or something like that, or Smeely. It sounds like Smiley, but it's Smeely. I don't know. Some BS, name, that it's from a Chinese company in Amazon. But, it's what it is. Look, point is, because Spain has been able to have a massive amount of usage of high-speed rail, because they've been building it in building it for the longest. Well, they had the largest amount of networks outside of outside of China, right? They have actually more high-speed rail trackage than Japan. I think the last time I checked, I think that's true. All right, that they had the second most amount of high-speed rail. Okay, not necessarily the best. Okay, but it's pretty good, right? That's one place I could probably go to. It shouldn't be that hard to get to Spain. So 5 class, 112 toggle AVE trains have been converted to the new AVLO specification. Okay, so AVLO is like the low cost. I think we've seen this in France where they have the WE service or something like that. But we see this in other places. They have lower cost services, right? In Japan, it's the Kodama service, which is a slower service. It goes to more stations. However, it costs about less than half the price than your regular Tokaido service. So that's what we need. So yeah, a demonstration service for the Spanish media operated between Madrid and Barcelona in late March. Renfe has already sold 200,000 AVLO tickets for the Madrid-Barcelona service, with fares starting at €7. €7 from Madrid to Barcelona. All right. We're going to end it on that article there, and we're going to take a little bit of a dive into this. €7 between Madrid and Barcelona. Okay, so let's see. Let's get this exact. €7 to USD, right? €7. Let's get the current rates. I believe it should be around the same now because the euro has tanked a good amount from what it used to be. All right. So for $8.33, probably plus some tax, you can go from Madrid to Barcelona. All right. How far is Madrid to Barcelona? All right. Let's get that down there. Let's go to. Let me get Google Maps. Let's go. There we go. All right. There we are. We got Google Maps here. All right. It keeps thinking I'm in Florida, which is perfectly fine. The less Google knows, the better, as always. Alrighty, let's go across the pond and let's go over here. Madrid and Barcelona. Barcelona. Okay, let's do this. Madrid to. Oh, go put Madrid, right? And just switch it up. Barcelona, Spain. All right. So we got. It would take 6 hours and 8 minutes. That's 622 kilometers. That's about what, like 400 miles or so. Okay, $83 for an hour and 20-minute flight. Again, we know how flights are. You have to go through TSA and whatnot and all that. So by the time it's an hour and 20-minute flight turns into like a 3-hour flight. Okay, and it's about 3 hours and 12 minutes by I believe that's high-speed rail. Yep, by the AVE. 3 hours and 12 minutes by AVE. Okay, so there you go. So it'll probably take about 4 minutes. So that's the type of things we're talking about, guys. You have a choice, all right? You want to go ahead and drive from Madrid to Barcelona. You want to drive let's be exact over here, okay? Since we're mostly an American audience, right? For those of you guys who use the metric system, good on you. It probably makes more sense, right? That's about 400 miles. Okay, it's exactly 386 miles, okay? So 622 kilometers is 386 miles, right? It's 386.49. We'll just say 390 miles, right? 390 miles, right? Let's just say 390, okay? So about 400 miles or so, which is within the range of where high-speed rail really works. Okay, so look, we're doing some sort of discussion over here. This is exactly what we this is exactly the type of discussions we should be having with other people. So I probably should split this video off and just show this because it will make sense. Okay, so I'm actually going to probably take this snippet part and talk about Madrid to Barcelona. Okay, so we're going to talk about this. So from Madrid to Barcelona, you can choose to take a 6 hour and 8 minute car ride, bearing that there is no sort of accidents or traffic or any sort of that. If it's all smooth sailing from there, okay, and if by any chance you have a car that has a 400-mile gas tank, there are some, unless you're a diesel car or something like that, which is a lot more common in Europe. You'll have these diesel Volkswagens or whatnot that get like 600 miles or so. Yeah, you can be able to go ahead on one tank. All right, so 6 hours and 8 minutes. Or you can go ahead and take a plane, and for about from $83 at the cheapest, it'll be an hour and 20 minutes. Okay, from $83. However, connecting flights are probably cheaper, and those connecting flights are 3 hours and 15 minutes. All right, so I don't know if you guys can see that, but this is what it is. Okay, so 3 hours and 15 minutes, $83. All right, we can go ahead and see what those actually are. Let me see if I can see the results in Google Flights. There we are. Let's go ahead and see that. All right, so Air Europa, $83, non-stop, an hour and 25 minutes. However, you're going to have to add 30 minutes of headway each way, right? Okay, so we're taking about an hour or so, you know, two and a half hours to 3 hours, right? And then to get from the city center, you have to go from the airport, which, again, look at where the airport is. If you want to go from Madrid city center, you're outside from the airport. So let's see if I want to go from the airport. Let's go from Madrid, Spain to Madrid, Barajas, Adolfo Suarez Airport. Okay, let's do that. So, Madrid, Spain to El Aeropuerto. Let's do that. Here we are. All right. Well, you can't take a plane from city center to city center, but it will take you a 23-minute car ride. Again, bearing that there is no traffic, no sort of stoppage, or any construction or anything like that. All right? So another 30 minutes, 21 minutes, adding onto there, that's going to be about a 3-hour ride, or a 3-hour tour. A 3-hour tour. All right, let's go back to what we were doing over here. So let's go back to Barcelona, right? And again, we'll say the same thing for Barcelona, which again is part of Catalonia right now. Or whatever, the shortest lived country, for, what was it, like 8 seconds or something like that? They're still LARPing that they're a country. All right, so where's the airport? About the same amount of time outside there. Yeah, so there's the airport. There's Barcelona city center. All right, so about 15-30 minutes outside of the urban area, right? So let's go if you want to take it by train. All right, the AVE is 3 hours and 12 minutes. What does it take you? It takes you basically from the city center right over here. It's right next to this massive park here, Parque Retiro. Takes you right out of there and takes you right into Barcelona. Right out of another park. Right there. So there you go. All right, and what is the cost of this? Let's see if we can see the details. All right. Well, there we go. Let's get the cost of the. Let's go ahead and see that. Let's see. To Barcelona. Okay. Let me see. All right, Madrid to Barcelona by train. Here we are. According to Rail Europe, the cheapest price is $38. All right, and the fastest journey is 2 hours and 30 minutes. Okay, 2 hours and 30 minutes by train. So that's probably an express train that goes from there. Although you can probably get a mid. Okay, so you can get between $38 and $89, so about the same price as an airline. You can get, from between that to go from 2 hours and 30 minutes to about 3 hours and 12 minutes. So this whole BS that you have Randy O'Toole on the Cato Institute saying that trains are slow, actually they're not. They're about as fast, if not faster, than airlines. Okay, and we see this is about 400 miles apart. Two cities that are about 400 miles apart. If you go to cities that are 300 miles apart, that becomes an even bigger blowout where trains get there easily 30 minutes ahead of your plane. And that's just facts, right? So now we're talking about that they're going to have a service that's $8, basically. $8. And they've already sold all the tickets. They already sold all the tickets for the first amount of fares because everybody's now going to go from Madrid to Barcelona at fares starting at just €7. Okay, and how fast is that going to be? It's probably going to be a little bit slower, maybe an hour or so, slower. Okay, but guess what? You're probably going to have a lot more room to stretch out. You're going to be able to go ahead and walk around. You're going to be able to actually eat human food, not peanuts that they throw on you on Ryanair or anything like that. Okay, if they even, no, they don't even give you food on some of these airlines. Like Spirit Airlines over here doesn't give you anything. You have to pay for water. Yes, right, you have to pay for water. You have to pay for a mask if by any chance your mask isn't up to spec for Spirit Airlines, which is wrong. They should give you a mask, period, if you don't have a mask that's up to their spec. So look at that. On a visit to Sevilla, where Avlo expansion announcement was made, Renfe President Mr. Isaiah Tobaos also confirmed that the operator will be involved in plans by the Andalusian regional government to develop a unified public transport tariffs and ticketing system. All right, so probably what that means is having a ticketing system where you can just be able to go ahead and from your phone be able to go ahead and get the same transit ticket to the train ticket, which will be a lot easier. Tobaos announced that the company expects demand to bounce back following the pandemic, with passenger numbers expected to reach 70% of 2019 levels by the end of 2021. Right? So they already have the system in place. They already had the infrastructure in place. Okay? They've already have themselves set for the long term. Okay? And they'll be able to bounce back a lot easier than we can. While over here in the United States, if as long as we can get ourselves back to work, and get ourselves to be building these type of systems, whenever some sort of other economic disaster happens like this, at least it will be easier for us to get back to work. We have to enable us to have these tools available. Passenger ridership on the Cercanías suburban services in major cities reached 50% of pre-pandemic in April. Okay, whereas it's funny, in the United States, we're still lagging behind a lot in our passenger rail. There are still places that have not even reached 50%. There are places that are, still close to 20%, if even, of their original passenger line. I believe Amtrak said that they're hoping to get, this year back to 20% of what they had before. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I believe that's what it is. But still, they're thinking they can get 50%. Whether that be true or not, that still remains up for debate in the future from this current point in time when we're doing this video. Although demand for high-speed inter-rail travel remains suppressed, with Renfe operating around 40% of the previous timetable. Okay, so again, they'll ramp up and they'll be able to get back into service. But that's what it is. This is the type of thing we want to bring into the United States. When this technology matures to a point, then we can be able to have services that can afford to give, poorer citizens or people, millennials and Zoomers like us, to be able to go ahead and have, rail services, for $8, where you can go 400 miles and then $8 go back. You know what $8 buys you here in the United States? Okay, that's a whole McDonald's meal. That's a whole McDonald's meal for $8. Not even some McDonald's meals are more expensive than that, right? So for the price of McDonald's, you can go ahead and go 400 miles. That is insane. We need that here. All right. So we're gonna. I think that worked out well. All right. Let's see who we have up in the queue. We're gonna hope. We'll just put next in line. Let's go ahead and Aegis, Arc, Virginia. All right. It's our friend Eric. Eric down in Norfolk, Virginia. Let's look in the comments over here a bit. I think my comments are still up to date over here. Yeah, but that's what it is, guys. This is the type of stuff we need over here. All right, am I right on that? Oh, okay, just the McDonald's sandwich. All right, $8 only gets you just the McDonald's sandwich. It's gotten that bad now. Which is funny because I just had a Big Mac right now, but Holly was the one that brought it for me, and I just had that as a snack. Big Macs to me are just snacks now. I'm just enjoying this as I can because, hopefully my metabolism doesn't get that bad. But I had that after I had half a pound of beef and rice. And I just had afterwards, I'm still a little hungry. I'm just going to have a Big Mac. Do you watch the YouTube channel Not Just Bikes? No, actually haven't heard of that. The McTrain, yes. All right, let's bring Eric up on board. So let's go ahead. Eric, you are on.
Anyway, I'm actually, just as I said before, I'm actually not in a in Norfolk.
I know. I keep teasing you about that.
Thank God I'm not running there right now because we got some Florida level bad thunderstorms going through there.
Oh dear. Yeah. Hunker down.
Hunker down for the rest of my family.
Yeah.
Well, this is my last day in Breckenridge, and we're about to go back over to Norfolk.
Oh, lucky you. Lucky you.
I've had a wonderful time skiing.
That's great,
over
man.
here, but I don't want to flout my wealth in quotations. Anyway, the website work has essentially stalled out, unfortunately. There's been too many things that are too much more important than just that website. I have SATs, SOLs. I have everything I have to do in compulsory education.
Yeah, man. It's it's the life of high school. It's what it is. But yeah, for those of you guys that don't know, Eric is working on a website. It's called Stop the Sprawl, right?
It's actually changed. It's actually Citizens Against Suburban Expansion.
Citizens Against Suburban Expansion. Okay. I still recommend that maybe you should probably stick with Stop the Sprawl. That's a lot easier to remember.
Well, that didn't stop CARE from succeeding in its marketing campaign, even though it failed.
Yeah, well, that's the reason why. It was too much to really remember. And then Citizens Against Railroad Expansion is already a negative connotation. People don't really like negative things. Something like Brightline, it's a bright thing. Citizens Against, that's already the two things. Citizens against what? Against what? Clean air. Citizens against, I don't know. Citizens against not cutting off the heads of bunny rabbits or something like that. I don't know. It's just what it is.
Yeah. Speaking of that, about speaking about me being over in Denver. So over in Denver, for a good comparison, they actually have a direct airport rail link thanks to Fast Tracks from the city center all the way to DIA.
Okay. So,
and the thing about it is I did talk about the last stream, but right now, it's just how much they've done in the last 4 to 6 years. Is they've been opening up lines. I know the airport line has had issues with with grade crossings and all that stuff like that.
Right.
Heard about the horror stories about what RTD had to deal with.
Yeah. It's just normal everyday life here in the United States when it comes to railroad building, right?
Yeah, I know. Anyway, well, I actually want to show you something that I actually got done for one of my main pictures for my it's actually a map for the initiative that we're gonna Stop the Sprawl. It's going to be the Unified Rail Plan, or HR 2040.
All right.
See if I can get.
Well, I don't know if I can do screen share now, and
that'll probably be a bit too much. In the description.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put the link. HRS 12.
But yeah, if anybody else is in the comments and they have anything to share, just let me know. And if you want to come up on Discord,
this is really still in its works. It's still a work in progress, but I think it's good enough that I can share it off onto the live stream and all that stuff like that.
All right.
So I have for the plebes in the YouTube chat and the participants in the Discord that they can go watch. They can view my untitled map.
Yeah, we're all kings here. We're all, even though we're passengers, we're all kings here.
If you can still say that.
Yeah.
And just so you know, I've actually flown on Ryanair. If you thought the worst airlines is it's equally as bad as Allegiant, but at least the flights I've been on, they actually had some decent service.
Yeah. I've been on Allegiant. I've been on basically every budget airline, but definitely the worst. It has to be Spirit Airlines. There's no competition.
If you said like from previous streams, like I predicted that in the next 20 years that Spirit and Allegiant are not going to be seen. They're not going to see any Spirit Airlines or Allegiants. They're going to go the way of Crimea and I think it was a Wizz Air, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's usually what happens to these budget airlines.
Yeah, they die fast. Yep. Ryanair for a long time, in fact, wasn't really a low-cost airline. In fact, they only really started doing that in like the early 2000s.
Yeah, and that's kind of the rule. You know, you live as a fast cash airline, you die as a fast cash airline. It's what it is. You know, you live fast, you die young.
So, let's give it a minute. Just have to title the map.
All right.
So. So, anyway, got it titled up, got the title set, so it's going to be called Hampton, it's HR 2040.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. What you should do, let's do this, Eric. Let's probably go ahead and like set up like an interview or something like that later on, so you can just have this all set up and have it in the presentation so we can be able to get that out, and you can be able to share this as well with other people within the area, and probably either local commissioners or mayors or Congress people in your area. That would probably make more sense. So once you get this all set up, I think that's what would probably be the best, because if we're just going on just these short snippets of how the progress is going, or we're not gonna really see the whole progress.
It's gonna end up like California high-speed rail.
Yeah, so let's do this, man. When you got something, let's do something so we can be able to get this out and get it out to people, because at that point it's gonna be a lot better for everybody.
Yeah, it is definitely. But anyway, going back to like previous statements, like just remove all the statements. Is that the map that I had is that essentially like this is just like for the core region, and if you notice something, like I marked them like if trains like lines that have light rail L, light rail or S, like they defer the differences between like remember this was like 2 streams back we talked about this, about how Hampton Roads is never going to have a unified rail system because Norfolk built the tide.
Yeah, I gotta interrupt you there, Eric, because I think we're running out of time there, and we got somebody else next in line. But again, man, I thank you so much. Like I said, I really honestly think the best route to this is once you get everything all set up and we have something concrete that we can be able to share, we can make this into a whole separate episode, and then we can start getting that out, and then we're really gonna see some things move.
I do have a YouTube channel, but I don't know if I have the capacity to like do like live streams. Like mine is like the only thing I can do. That's all right. That's all right. Yeah, just keep putting out videos, because that's what it is. When it comes down to consistency, and look, coming from me, I'm probably the last person to talk about consistency, because I've been on and off when it comes to YouTube. But if you can keep putting out consistent videos, you'll get there, man. You'll get there. Yeah. I'm telling you. All right. Certainly.
But again, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I have a hot tub to catch.
Yep. Yeah, there you go. Take care, man.
See you there.
Take care. All right. Again, guys, if you have anything to share, absolutely, be sure to share it with us. Again, but we just want to give everybody else some time to get on here and take some calls and whatnot. All right. So again, let's keep it to one person at a time. So if you've already been on the call, we're trying to keep it just one time you can get on the call. All right. So if you're in the queue again, and if you already have spoken, let's give other people a chance. So we'll go ahead. It's already almost 10. It's 10:34. All right. So we'll make this the last call of the night. Star Force 97 is going to be on, and that will be the last call of the night, and we'll conclude it from there. You are on Star Force 97. Welcome aboard.
Hello. Hello from the great metropolitan city of Chicago.
Oh, Chicago.
Yep. Where I basically the place where and basically since for a long time, I think since 2008, I never saw the benefits of transit until I was introduced to a rapid transit system in Cleveland, and then I found, and then I also discovered the L train in Chicago, and I figured, you know what, like I think this is a really like efficient system of getting around. Like it's a great alternative, but over the years I've discovered our transit hasn't, even though it's big and expansive, it's not very well connected.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's really been bothering me, and I honestly feel like despite everything that we have going for us with like Brightline and Texas Central Railway going on Florida, Texas, those other states, and with California high-speed rail, it just feels like Chicago, and especially all the surrounding Midwest cities are just being kind of like not prioritized, because if you really think about it, like it's a big issue. Like with my experiences, like here in Chicago, like the roads, I've seen the infrastructure, and a lot of it's just crumbling, and it's just like there's not much. They're making some like Chicago's system, like Chicago's like Regional Transportation Authority is making some improvements, like the CTA is doing its red purple line modernization with its track extensions, and but I feel like they're kind of missing, like it's kind of like only focused on one part of the system as opposed to like the network as a whole. And I've also done some research on some proposals for like for what they were going to do with Metra, and that was the Suburban Transit Access Route, or basically the Star Line, as it was called.
Exactly. I'm sorry to jump in here, but apologies for that. But what you're saying about the Midwest region, since I'm here in in Indy, it's true, right? There's a lot of big regions over here that can easily be connected to rail. The geography is not that hard to tackle. And with a city like Chicago, which is America's second city, as they call it or whatnot.
Basically, the second city.
Yeah, it should be a no-brainer that Chicago used to serve as a major hub for rail. I mean, it still has the Union Station over there, which is a beautiful station. It should be having a lot more in terms of having prioritization for things like high-speed rail and better rail transit network. Because I have been on the L. And I wasn't that impressed with it at all. It's like basically a dinkier version of New York's rail line, which is it's quite sad. It should be a heck of a lot better. And Metra does serve a good amount. There's a lot more people who take Metra, but yeah, it's kind of what it is.
It's just really with the suburbs. I live in along the Union Pacific West Line in Wheaton, and my parents live in Geneva, so that's kind of convenient for me because I'm basically connected by that. We're basically connected by that train line, which is one of the great examples. I used to take it all the time, like to college and back, like commuting a lot of times. But and then there's also the issue with what I see like the schedules with the Pace Bus and the Metra, they don't line up very well. Most of the time.
Yeah, it's what it is. I mean, there needs to be a massive push to revamp a lot of these existing transit transit organizations across the United States. Because even if we were to build a robust transit system, once people get to these cities, they're not going to be able to get around well if these other organizations are not playing along and playing up to speed. Pun intended, but that's kind of the issue. I'm not just talking about speed. It's just the whole system in itself. The massive, we were just talking about it in the Discord channel. We were talking about somebody who visited down in Miami, that the Miami Metro Rail. I mean, it's 30 minutes between some trains. Like, what kind of a schedule is that? Like, no wonder nobody's taking that, because it's such an off schedule. So if you have the infrastructure there, it's even worse when you disuse it or misuse it, and you have light rail systems that are either following red lights. I mean, come on, stuff like that, and rail transit systems that are have way too much headway between each other. These are the type of problems that also need to be solved in the United States before we can go ahead and start having massive grand plans. Because if we can't even do these small things right, imagine how much we can mess up throwing $2 billion into the wrong things, or $2 trillion. Right. Yeah.
Like you really have to start at the local level, to really get anywhere. Like, that's why with what we saw with Brightline, where we initially saw the connection between West Palm Beach and Fort Lauderdale, was it?
Yeah.
Then they expanded, and then from there they expanded.
Yeah.
Connecting Miami, and now they're expanding all the way up to Orlando and then Tampa. This started at in South Florida, all aboard Florida. It really started at the local level, and look where it's going, and look where Brightline's going.
And that's the type of model, and that's why without Brightline we probably would have no hope here. We probably would still be having silly little posters talking about high speed rail in America, and still be doing that sort of stupidity. Brightline has changed the entire game in this country. That's the type of model we need to follow, because now they're not just doing high-speed rail or lines between different cities. Now they're working on a commuter network, and they're probably going to do that a heck of a lot better than the local government under the South Florida Rail Transit Administration is going to do. They're probably going to do a heck of a lot better. They're probably going to have more passengers, I guarantee, in the first 5 years than Tri-Rail's ever had.
Yeah, I can see a lot of the ridership transitioning over to Brightline from Tri-Rail, because basically it's gonna be faster, and it's gonna be more efficient, and it's going to unlike Tri-Rail, this is going to connect Aventura Mall, which is, again, like you said, one of the biggest, if not the biggest mall in the country.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the type of forward thinking we made. Absolutely. But again, thank you, Starforce97, for coming on. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Take care. All right. That's it for calls. I think everybody else in the queue has already been here before, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to start concluding up over there. Let's see if there's anybody else in the comments has anything else to say. We're doing a little bit better when it comes to time. It's now 10:42, so we're ending it at about 2.5 hours, which is usually what most streams go for. Maybe we'll try to do a stream where I'll play a game or something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'll play trains or something. We'll figure it out. Maybe I'll do a poll later on. All right, but we still have a good amount of people on. So if you guys have anything else to say in the comments, let's hear it, and then we'll call it a night over here at 10:45. We're gonna start. I'm shutting it down. CTR Lee, 30 minutes. In Hong Kong, trains are as frequent as 2 minutes. Yeah, 2 minutes peak, yeah. That's sort of the problem. When I went to Tokyo, we were just taking it leisurely. We weren't rushing to go ahead and catch the next train. I mean, you could just walk and we're walking down the stairs. We missed the train. Let it go. And then we'll just wait there for an hour. Maybe we'll order a drink off the vending machine, talk some crap and whatnot, and then the next train will come along, and then we take the train. It was just the easiest thing. I still keep talking about that trip. It was just a different world. I mean, once people are able to see it, and I'm glad we were able to go ahead at that time, because now going into Tokyo or anywhere now, going anywhere outside of the United States or anywhere else is just a complete hassle now. So thank God, by whatever divine providence, I was able to go there and be able to get that footage and make that video for you guys to see. Because not just, it wasn't just for me, not at all. This was for all of you to go ahead and see what it was like there in Japan, because most of us can't really afford a vacation. I was like, that's a once in a lifetime thing for a lot of us, right? I never know if I'll be able to get there again, at the current rate things are going. But my God, it was just such a different way of just getting around everywhere. And I gotta be honest. Me being growing up and being raised in Miami, I have never felt anywhere in any place in a city where I didn't have to look behind me, head on a swivel 24/7. I had my guard down for maybe the first time in my entire life, outside of my home. I never felt like just at ease in any urban area. It's insane. But that's the type of thing hopefully we can bring there. Sawgrass is larger than Aventura Mall. Yeah, in terms of space, yeah, but in terms of volume and how many people go there, actually no, I believe Aventura Mall now. I'm sorry, Aventura Mall now is actually bigger now in terms of square cubic feet than Sawgrass. Actually, from the last expansion about 8 years ago or so. Mr. Game Utopia. I used to go to Japan every year for almost 20 years, and I never got old. The bullet train never got old. Yeah, I wish I could do that. I got lucky. My dad worked for Royal Caribbean, and I got cruises. I got cruises up to here, like saying I got octopus up to my ears from Scarface. No, I love cruises. Cruises are fantastic. I mean, you want to talk about a low stress type of vacation that's probably never going to come back now because of the coof. That was it. Asgard Vicaria, I love watching the hour-long TCR meeting recordings on YouTube. Yeah, I'll probably try to get Carlos Aguilar on here. Hopefully soon. That'll be nice. Will we have budget rail lines? Yep. This is the type of thing. You know what's the funny thing? To go something like on Spirit Airlines or whatnot, the cheapest airline was $89, right? $89 to get from Madrid to Barcelona. And here you are, $8 to get on a train from Madrid to Barcelona, a high-speed train from Madrid to Barcelona, okay? And you can walk around, you can bring your own food, okay? On the airlines, you can't bring, you can only bring food if if it's only food. You can't bring your own drinks through TSA. You can only buy, the $9 smart water. Anybody who pays $3 or more for water isn't smart. It's that's the ridiculous thing about smart water. All right, Indy loves me back, of course. I love it. And some places here like Indianapolis, it is a shame there isn't as much of in terms of high-speed rail, in terms of rail connections here to the city, because it's a very walkable city here in Indianapolis. There's wide sidewalks. There's a lot of public parks. Actually, the second most memorials, war memorials after Washington D.C. Are here in Indianapolis. We actually have a massive veteran population here. Which goes to say, if anything were to kick off, if any SHTF situation, Indianapolis is turning into Starship Troopers. It's going to be run by the veterans. Ever thought of doing a video on comparing how California high-speed rail is being built to how the original Shinkansen was built? After all, JR was government-owned back then. Yeah, I did that a while ago. I think it was the video, what was wrong with California high-speed rail. I know for sure I did it on one of the videos, actually comparing the cost. Comparing the cost up to now, with inflation put into there and whatnot. California high-speed rail actually is costing 3 times more, okay, with inflation adjusted, 3 times more about than Japan's high-speed rail system. And Japan's high-speed rail system, let's be honest, Japan's high-speed rail system had to develop a lot more. They had to develop the earthquake prevention system. They had to develop the entire technology from basically scratch, okay, do all the planning and everything, and they got that done in 5-6 years. 6 years. They started building in 1958. They got it done in 1964. California has started since 2008 It is now 2021. They haven't gotten diddly squat. All right. Then Japan, who was blown up from World War II, Tokyo completely firebombed back in 1958, built a freaking 125-mile-an-hour Shinkansen that nobody ever did before up to 1964. How embarrassing is that? All right. I think we'll end it there, guys. But thank you all so much for coming on board. These are becoming fun. I'm glad these are now becoming a regular part of the club. I think we had the most amount of viewers today was about what, close to 94 or something like that. So we're getting up there, guys. I mean, this has become a movement, and it's just gaining steam. Are gaining electricity. We're putting the voltage up now. Okay, the catenaries are touching up, and we are just pulling ahead. So thank you all for being a part of this wild and crazy ride. I'm your conductor and host on this wild and crazy ride, Demetrius Villa, and we will see you all next time.